Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your President, Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Worldwide Wednesdays, where we discuss, well, worldwide events and affairs. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for coming here. I keep never finding myself center. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I just have like this lean going to me or something, but I'm trying to stay centered on this foolish thing. But anyway, buenas noches, Ana la Diosa. Today is also Mexican Independence Day, or there's at least videos about it on the stream, so hopefully I will learn as well what we're celebrating. We'll be covering, of course, many different topics. Most actually, or not most, but there are quite a few today that are actually going to be positive in nature, and others are going to be, of course, genocide, World War III, and Trump instigating World War III and or committing war crimes. Also, to anybody who might be watching now or in the future, we definitely need to come up with a better name than calling this administration an administration, right? That implies there's legitimacy to what this piece of garbage and his merry band of misfits are doing. And regime also I don't feel like that's a strong enough slur against Trump and his ilk. And calling them a terrorist organization, yeah, that's accurate, but that just kind of doesn't, to me, it doesn't hit the right tone. What they are doing is terrorism. And in my opinion, what Trump and his ilk are doing are terrorist actions. And it's not just my opinion. If you look at the definition of terrorism, and you look at what the hell they're doing to this country, to immigrants, to people in this country who have different skin color and so on and so forth, they commit acts of fear and violence against specific demographics and acting specific policies specifically for political ideological purposes. So they are terrorists in every single sense of the word. But calling them a terrorist regime, I just don't feel like hits the point home. It just doesn't. It seems too ambiguous, too superfluous. Maybe it's just not the right word. And maybe the word isn't in English. Maybe there's a French word for it. Maybe there's a Spanish word for it. Maybe there's a Middle Eastern word for it. I don't know. I don't really care. But we are looking for said word to describe Trump and his merry band of misfits. And we want to figure out a way to refer to them that is extremely, extremely derogatory. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. Let's get this party started. With the good stuff, with marginally pleasant things. Mexico celebrating Independence Day with the first female president, and then it looks like a couple
Yesterday was a very big day.
Oh, so it was yesterday. September 16th is Mexican independence. Bang.
Every September 15th, Mexico pauses for one of its most important traditions, El Grito de Independencia, the cry that launched a revolution. But this year, history was made. For the very first time, the voice ringing out from the National Palace wasn't a man's. It was Mexico's first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum.
Ma'am, whoever this creator is, Caitlin Speaks, for having 50,000 views and 48,000 subs, you suck at your audio mixing. I can barely hear Claudia. But this is my impression of Claudia on Mexicans' Independence Day. Viva Liberté Sovereignté Mexicana Populare! To which I say, go get him, Madam President.
And in case you don't know what's going on, let's back up for a second. In 1810, a parish priest named Miguel Hidalgo rang the church bell in the town of Dolores and called up on the people to rise up against Spanish colonial rule.
Fuck yeah.
That moment, known as the Grito de Dolores, is considered the spark that lit Mexico's War of Independence.
Now, and then 30 or 40 years later, America went to war with the newly christened independent Mexico, where America ended up winning that war, and in a bout of racism, decided to split Mexico from where the Mexican border is now all the way up to the Canadian border, instead of taking the entire Central America and what we did end up taking, which is, again, nuts. Great that Mexico's its own country. Crazy that they lost a war and maintained most of their landmass because of white supremacy and racism.
Every year on the night of September 15th, Mexico's sitting president reenacts Hidalgo's cry from the National Palace in Mexico City. It is both patriotic and...
Is that... So, first of all, Queen, look at that war cry from Claudia. I mean, god damn. Hollywood, here's a thought. When you're casting Wonder Woman, when you're inevitably redoing Wonder Woman for the umpteenth time, might I suggest Claudia Scheinbaum honorable mention as something within the Amazonian world? Even if it was like, because she's obviously the president of Mexico, she doesn't have the time to go to Hollywood and film and all that. But I'm just saying, that's a war cry. That is like, she's got it. Anyway.
And emotional, and millions of Mexicans tune in,
and she's
whether
yanking
in
on whatever the hell that
person or
is,
on television.
and holding.
So yeah,
what?
September 16th will always mark Mexico's independence, but September 15th, 2025, will be remembered as the first time that Mexico's grito, its cry for freedom, was carried by a woman's voice for the very first time.
Yeah, and some lily white American girl was the one to do the video on it. Viva la liberté! As Karen lets us know. Karen Smith. That is a huge
flag. Thousands of people gathered here in the central square of Mexico City
to
celebrate Mexican independence and to witness the first time a woman leads this historic celebration.
Oh, she's yanking on the bell while holding the flag. Damn, I need to go back here and grab this thing.
But Claudia Sheinbaum is not just the first woman to do this.
She even has like
one of the most popular presidents in Mexican history. Recent polls place her approval rating close to 80%.
Damn.
Year into
80% is pretty fucking good.
There are, of course, several reasons for Claudia Sheinbaum's popularity, but I think one important one, and which relates to this notion of independence, has been how she has been able to
and look the actual like Aztecian headdresses and stuff.
In the context
Fuck
of
yeah! Oh, more indigenous attire. By the way, so technically, the Aztecs never existed because Azteca is the Anglicanized renaming of the Mexica Empire. Because modern-day Mexico and ancient Mexico was too fucking hard for white settler colonial historians to deal with, I guess. That's the actual literal reason why they pulled... I don't know if Aztec itself came from, like, a tribe or a region of Mexico. I don't remember the full history behind it. But, to be clear, Mexicans are indigenous to this continent and have been indigenous to this continent for thousands upon thousands of years, and they were an empire by the time the conquistadors came here and brought their diseases and guns over. So, to see this living, breathing culture of Mexico going, like, the lady in the bottom right-hand corner, I guess I can't reach my hand over in there, but, like, what that lady is wearing in the bottom right-hand corner, like, that is authentic Mexica, in, like, the Mexican Historia. She's wearing it. And the fact that so many cultural movements and aesthetics and clothing and art and culture is making such a massive comeback is just beautiful to see. I wish there was much more of it. I hope it starts taking on mainstream interest because, quite frankly, this homogenization of Western culture is literally sacrificing a lot of human history that we have earned over the course of millennia. And it on top of the fact that Claudia Sheinbaum is out there with her flag and ringing the bell with the other hand, screaming at the top of her lungs, liberty and independence for the Mexican people. Like, that right there to me is the true symbolic version of that. The purest visual representation of that.
The U.S. and with President Donald
great,
Trump,
she did. That's awesome.
She has time and time again repeated that Mexican sovereignty and Mexican independence must be respected when it comes to all negotiations with the neighboring country. And I think that has really played well with her supporters and with Mexicans in general.
As it should.
President Claudia Sheinbaum has done an impressive job of letting the world know what Mexico is. We are not going to be silenced by the United States. We are not their backyard. We are people of great worth.
While this party continues here in
Do
Mexico
not give
City,
in to this
it's worth
terrorist
noting that
regime.
throughout the
You know what? Terrorist regime does roll off the tongue. This terrorist regime in the White House, I feel like that does roll off the tongue. We'll stick to that until we have something better.
Several cities were forced to cancel their Independence Day celebration due to security concerns. And that is one area where Claudia Sheinbaum's popularity falters. Mexicans continue to be very concerned about the security situation in the country not being under control. For those here today in Mexico City, that does not seem to be...
Yeah, but you know what? Here's... this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be a caliente take, all right? You can have an ultra hyper secure country, or you can have a free country, right? At the same time, why are there security risks in a country at all? And let me tell you. I'll answer that question because it's a rhetorical question. Crime and danger and violent crime and all this stuff, cartels, the criminal organizations, they all exist because society does not provide the basic material needs for its citizenry in its entirety. Now, we're talking about Mexico. Mexico has struggled with poverty in the past. Mexico still struggles with poverty in the past. Mexico is a growing economy, a modernizing economy. There are parts of Mexico that you would think are straight out of the 1800s, and there are parts of Mexico that make Tokyo look back-asswards, right? Just like in America. There are parts of America that still don't have electricity, still don't have running water, and these aren't the Amish, and it isn't the native reservations. It's none of that shit. It is extremely poor parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Montana, Mississippi, Alabama. They are all over the place. I am absolutely certain they're in every single state in the country. And so every country has these pockets of extreme poverty, which breeds extreme crime, right? And it's especially prevalent in major cities where there is abundance, but at the same time, there's no accessibility to that abundance because it's stripped from you through the rising cost of living and the lack of opportunity to achieve resources, i.e. a livable wage and so on and so forth. Apolitical, welcome to the stream. Missed you yesterday, but glad you made it to the foreign conversation. Where was I? Okay, so if you want to solve poverty and you want to solve crime, and I'm talking like broadly speaking, reducing the need for the material conditions that allow groups like cartels and gangs to grow and to flourish and to form in the first place, you must provide for the material conditions of the many. And I'm not talking the utmost minimal basics. I'm not talking like, oh, we'll give you a hovel and one loaf of bread and one bottle of water. No, I'm talking about providing the material conditions to live and to survive. But that also includes utilities, access to internet, cell phones. In this age, you need cell phones. You need the internet. It would also include housing, of course, affordable, if not free, universal healthcare and education, insurance to go along with having the house and transportation. You need universal accessible transportation, or you need to be able to access transportation through affordable means, such as a private vehicle, like a scooter even, right? And then you have to make sure that access to food and other resources like clothing are also affordable and, again, extremely accessible. Once people are fed, clothed, sheltered, and have access to all of their material needs and resources to live a fulfilling life in a modern society, crime goes away. Like, most crimes are crimes of desperation. You get violent crime that is fed from depression, that leads to active shooters or to mass killings or racially charged killings or killings based on, gang on gang violence, cartel on cartel violence, so on and so forth. All of those things are because individuals either didn't have their needs met, didn't have access to the materials they needed, or have already coalesced to create their own little communities and societies that do provide them, okay? So the nuance here is gangs and cartels, criminal organizations form because society has failed the members of that organization by making it impossible for them to achieve their goals and their needs without creating this other organization. The organization provides, sure, maybe at the point of a gun, sure, maybe at the risk of being turned over or be used as a patsy, but at the same time, so long as you're complying with the community rules, the gang and or cartel will take care of you. You will be fed, you will be clothed, you will be sheltered, you will have access to all the things that you want, and then some, just like any other regular society. Because the criminal element has provided where the legal element has failed. And that's the struggle of every single government in the world right now, is trying to combat crime through violence rather than expanding and improving social access. Like, let's just take it back another notch. This uniform says United States Air Force. Every military in the world is the singular largest, most well-funded, most well-equipped gang in that respective country. And let's be very clear. When you look at what a military is and the purpose that it serves, how is it any different than a gang? Gangs offer protection, security, and resources to their members. Gangs just, threaten civilians. Oh, wait, militaries also threaten civilians, granted, of other countries. But gangs are islands to themselves. Some span wide stretches of land or major regions. How is that any different? Right? Right, and then in Nepal, you have the military being used as the private wing to crack down on dissent. Now we have it in America, where the National Guard is being activated to patrol our streets to, again, challenge dissent, right? So if the military can be used as a bludgeon by those in power against citizens exercising their rights, how is that not criminal? Oh, wait, it is criminal. So when I say that militaries as an institution can and do serve the same function as a gang, I am not saying that with any sense of hyperbole or exaggeration, and that's including the fact that I am proud of my military service. I am glad I served my country. I would like to continue to serve my country, but clearly not in the military, where I would have to follow the orders of the Nazi in chief. I'm not doing that shit. Hence why I'm involved in politics. I'm going to serve my country directly in politics by either creating the legislation and getting it passed, or at the executive level, where I can manage the country's resources and manage our legislative processes, and so on and so forth, right? So, the other reason why I mentioned gang versus the military provides every single thing to their service members. It is provided. There is a number and an arithmetic that is calculated to ensure that every single service member has every single one of their basic needs met, to include housing, shelter, their uniforms, the training that they need to perform their jobs, and the material conditions necessary to make it to their jobs. The only thing the military does not provide is an actual car. Like, it does not give you a car unless you're an officer and you have special reasons for it. But beyond that, you're responsible for your own vehicle. But you also get paid. And the only thing you have to worry about is staying within your monthly salary, which is public information and goes up every year anyway, right? So as long as you stay within your material conditions, you will never struggle. Here's where the problem happens, and which is where society fails, okay? And why many people argue against socialism and communism in general. So, well, if you provide for everything, people will just become complacent, and then there'll be the haves and the have-nots anyway, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, right. Society rewards consumerism because we live in a capitalist society. It does not reward participation in society, in the community, helping one another, camaraderie. It doesn't do that. There are maybe a few countries in the world, and really only one that I can think of off the top of my head, that has a societal belief that your contributions, your adulthood is to contribute to society. That is your purpose. And the only one I can really think of is Japan. Now, I know there might be some that would argue China. But beyond those two, I don't really know that there are any where the purpose of society and people of society is to contribute to society for future generations and not for yourself. In the West, for the most part, it's every man for themselves, even if you have your material conditions met. And that's the problem. There is not enough unity and also not enough things to go after, right? Why are some of the most wealthiest, happiest countries in the world still dealing with major depression and declining birth rates? It's because people are acting frivolously even if they have their material conditions met, and they are being lulled into numbness due to that frivolity. I like video games, I like watching movies, but let me tell you what, doing that day in and day out, every single day, from the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed, for even 2 months on end, makes me go insane. I want to do something. I want to use my brain. I want to create something. I want to be a part of something. I want to do. Most human beings want to be a part of something. Yes, they want their little fun, whimsical things, but most human beings want to be a part of something greater than themselves. They want to feel as if they are valued and respected. And they want to genuinely be valued and respected. And a society does not exist anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world is there a society that provides for all of these things at once. The material conditions needed to survive, enough freedom of movement to go after your own interests, and rewarding work. It's rarely the first two, and it is never the third one. There is not a single country on this planet Earth where your labor is celebrated. Truly celebrated. Nowhere. Not China, not Japan, not South Korea, not North Korea, certainly not America, not Argentina, not Colombia, not Cuba, not Jamaica, not Burkina Faso, not Jordan, not Egypt, certainly not South Africa. No country in the world truly celebrates labor, rewards labor. And that's the difference between creating a healthy society that can thrive even if all of its material conditions are met, and even if they, what was the other thing? Even if they can pursue all of their interests and goals and whatever else, if they are still not fulfilled in their labors and not celebrated in their labors, it still ends up causing some sort of spiral downward into some sort of unhealthiness. That's the fundamental flaw in the way we have decided to organize ourselves in societies and countries, nations abroad, right? So, when I specifically talk about President of the United States, Samuel Ronan, and we talk about Ronanism, and we talk about how to implement social programs, economic revolution for the sake of argument, and then infrastructure, it is keeping those three major points in mind. Material conditions being met, the ability to achieve your own art and creation and leisure activity, but also celebrating and rewarding labor. And that's what's missing. That's missing in every single fucking country. So if you want to address poverty and you want to address crime in the world, anywhere in the world, at any stage of government, whether it's a tiny little village with less than 17 people in it, or major cities like Tokyo, or states, or countries, that is what you need to do, period, dot. This isn't rocket science. I'm not curing cancer here, folks. I'm not inventing a flux capacitor. If you can meet all of your material conditions, if you can have your little hobbies, and you can feel fulfilled and truly celebrated and rewarded from your labors, that is a prosperous, thriving society that has infinite growth potential. People will not burn out, especially if their labor is able to be transferred, right? Because nobody wants to do, well, that's not true. Most people don't want to do the same thing day in and day out. They want to try new things. And the more you can facilitate that new thing, that hunger for creativity, that hunger for knowledge and learning and curiosity, if we would just stop taking children from the womb and stomping on their heads every single thought or curiosity that emerges from them, we would be having this conversation on Mars right now. Alpha Centauri guaranteed. And there are studies to prove it. 98%, 99% of all children that have ever been studied for the sake of creative genius, creative being mathematical, artistic, or what have you, every single child, 98%, damn near every single child, okay, that has ever been studied for creative genius has had creative genius. Literally, 98% of all children are Einstein, Marie Curie, George Washington Carver, Claudia Scheinbaum, I'm trying to think of like genius inventors, Nikolai Tesla, my God, Galileo Galilei, like Copernicus, right? Every single child, for the all intents and purposes, an overwhelming majority of children have that level of genius, that level of curiosity, that level of hunger to learn. If humans have a superpower, an instinct, something, an evolutionary quirk that has allowed us to thrive to this point, it is curiosity. It is 100% curiosity. The second part is the fact that we are a communal species. I would say communal first, curiosity second, right? Community to survive. Oh, once you're alive and not having to worry about getting eaten every single day, then you can be curious. So between community and right under that, the curiosity, that is what makes humans humans. So nowhere in our society, nowhere on planet Earth are we able to be humans. That's the fucking problem. Sorry, apolitical, I wasn't ignoring you. I just needed to finish my thought. Serving the country, I always felt like you serve the politicians in power's interests. Yeah, that's what I learned the hard way after I put on the uniform. I would be interested if you think otherwise, since you don't like any U.S. president in history that I know of. Right, well, here's the problem. I served under Obama. And the problem with serving under Obama is that Obama had a charisma stat of like 25. Okay? Motherfucker had drip. He had charm. He made you swallow the imperialism and thank him for it, right? Obama made you feel warm and fuzzy. And I served under Obama. I know now Obama was pretty much as much or more of a war criminal than Biden and Trump and the Bushes and Clinton and so on and so on. Like, he was literally no different than any of them. He just made the imperialism go down like the smoothest, most aged whiskey you could ever drink. Like, just, like whiskey that goes down like water. That was the problem, is that he was exceedingly charismatic. But, knowing what I know now, all of our politicians have been corrupt since the dawn of time, and there have never been a true checks and balances in our country. There has only ever been a rising amount of control and influence from moneyed interests. And once Citizens United passed and was able to make money free speech, well, it went downhill immediately from there. You can forgive Obama. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people do find themselves forgiving Obama. Every time I hear Obama speak, I'm like, wow, what a night. Wait a minute! Criminal! It's tough. It really is. In fact, me and Anna we've had like damn near shouting, crying phone calls. Obama's a bastard! I know! Ah, son of a bitch. I know he's a bastard, but he's so charismatic. I know, but he committed war crimes. He started ICE! He started putting the kids in cages. He's a war criminal. But he did the... Thanks, Obama. Ah! It's true. It's really hard to be mad at Obama. It really is. But you gotta dig deep. You gotta dig deep. He doesn't get spared the Hague, folks. He walked so Trump could run, so Biden could, and Trump could run again. So, no. If it wasn't for ICE and the expansion of ICE and the kids in cages and the deportations and the separation of kids from families, if it wasn't for all of that, bombing 5 countries in the Middle East, so on and so forth, we wouldn't be where we are today. Right, he bombed the shit out, like, again. Right, Anna, right there, Anna, right there. The Nobel Peace Prize winner with a kill list, who would publicly talk about needing to celebrate whistleblowers and then persecuted Edward Snowden to the point where he still can't return to America. He's got such great comedic timing, too. No, that's the thing. He's a genuine he has motherfuck. I forgot to play Spotify in the background. Did we lose the stream? Because I know we lost the audio. All right, are we good? All right, sorry about the... Wouldn't be a stream if it wasn't technical difficulties, folks. Wouldn't be me. Honestly, we could have Hassan's entire viewership join us right fucking now. And for the next 30 days, and I guarantee you, with 30,000 viewers, 40,000 viewers on this stream, we would still have a technical hiccup every single time we stream because I can't help it, I guess. All right, anyway, so we're good. All right. But we were talking about how Obama is literally... Here's the thing. I make a lot of D&D references because I am a nerd, right? And the thing is about D&D is charisma is one of the primary traits of demon lords. Like, literally demon lords of hell. Like, vampire kings and queens. Like, the biggest, baddest bad guy has a ridiculously high charisma trait. And why is that? Because most bad guys, although they may very well be unrepentantly evil, have the ability to control hordes, masses, implement their plans of destruction. That requires charisma. Charisma can also be considered cunning, right? Cunning. The ability to lie, the ability to undermine, the ability to think and scheme, right? So charisma as a trait is something that the hero and the villain both have in spades. And Obama is so good at playing the hero despite being the villain, you actually cheer him on while he commits war crimes. Like, while he commits crimes against humanity. Separating kids from their families, putting them in cages, expanding the secret police in the first place, sending people to Guantanamo, which is an extrajudicial prison site where you can put people indefinitely. Like, the man has done a whole bunch of horrendous shit. But he smiles, he cracks jokes, he's easy to laugh with. He's got the great comedic timing. He's a guy that you want to have a beer with. He's a guy that you want to bring to the comedy club, to dinner, because you know it's going to be a great time. And you know what? When he's sitting in prison at The Hague, he can entertain every single other one of those war criminals, and they're going to love him for it. Or maybe he gets sentenced to death for his crimes. We won't know. Right. Has Flint... Actually, shame on me, but I don't remember the last time I've heard about Flint. Does Flint still have unclean water 2025? So, according to federal and state authorities in mid-2025, Flint's water is no longer considered unclean and has finally met EPA standards for lead in drinking water for several consecutive years. Okay, so it finally got fixed. 9 years later. 9 years later, it took to fix our a city in our country's water supply because the population was predominantly black and we are a white supremacist country. Well, you're saying they're still getting poison? Fair enough. Yeah, do we really want to believe the enemy? To be fair, it's crazy to me that we haven't heard anything about Flint at all. But then again, when you have literal secret police disappearing people in broad daylight and kidnapping children from fucking school, yeah, things like Flint's water main does tend to fall. So does things like the Tennessee AI super plant and the fact that they are being gassed, literally being gassed with what? It was methane turbines. So, correct. Those things do tend to fall through in terms of story. So, anyway, I went off on like 15 different tangents there. Anna, I think if you could do a timestamp for around minute 20, which is when I started talking about the necessities of how to develop a thriving human society, I think we could actually use that as a clip and or short form video, probably a 5 or a 10er. Okay, so we had our good news for the day. Have I seen the rise of Nick Fuentes? Can't say that I have, nor could I say that I would be interested in watching it. And I'm not saying because you suggested or anything, but like I am not going to give that man ad revenue, platform, exposure, none of that. Like, he is an avowed Nazi. Like, Kirk was an avowed white supremacist. Nick Fuentes is an avowed Nazi. Like, no. The only thing I want to see happen to that guy is an extremely harsh prison sentence, preferably with the death penalty. Yeah, I mean, is to not talk about them. You're right. Yes, exactly. From a historical point of view, sure, but right now this isn't history. Right now we're living in the present and they are problems. So I don't want to give them more fuel than they deserve. Or than they already have, I guess is the word I want to say. Right, it's just... Well, okay, let's talk about that, though. All of these right-wing extremists keep coming up on the For You pages, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, whatever have you, right? And yet, in America, they're trying to say that it's left-wing extremism that's on the rise on all of these different platforms, and yet have nothing to say about the right-wing extremism, because obviously they are the right-wing extremists. They are the terrorist regime that are going out of their way to promote other terrorists and their platforms and policies. So the hypocrisy is sure worth noting, but it's the danger of spreading that message. Spreading those messages is how the fascism perpetuates its existence. And that is, of course, a clear and existential threat. It is a clear and present danger to society because it can only ever result in one thing: death and violence. It can only ever get to that point. as we have seen, Nick Fuentes is calling for the death of CK. CK was calling for the death of transgenders and brown people and blacks and so on and so forth. And Ben Shapiro is maybe not calling for anybody's death, but certainly the discrimination and disparagement of that, right? So you start at the like, well, actually, would it be that you start at the Andrew Tates or the Tucker? Oh, no, it's probably Tucker Carlson because he was on mainstream media. So you start at Tucker Carlson, which feeds you the racism and the misinformation. You make your way to Ben Shapiro, where he starts feeding you the actual derogatory, you need to be against all this and call it, logical debate and whatever other nonsense. And then you have CK, who starts promoting the idea of violence, and then you have Nick Fuentes, who is calling for straight up violence against everyone who doesn't look like me. So when you have this kind of pipeline in effect and being supported by the regime, the terrorist regime, and then all of these platforms are owned and operated by people that profit from it, like, it can only ever lead to the inevitable outcome of right-wing escalation. That's how the right-wing propaganda works. Now, if you had left-wing extremism in a pipeline, say I am the moderate voice of the left, which, no, I don't think I am. I'm not. I think Bernie is probably the moderate voice of the left. And then you get to, you listen to Bernie, and then you get to Hassan. And Hassan is pretty outspoken. He's fairly well nuanced, but he isn't as policy driven. He isn't as ideologically driven as I am. And then you get to me, and I'm like, yeah, no, fuck up the fascists, and let's do X, Y, and Z. This is exactly how we build the utopian society, right? And then you go even further left, and it's, like the Marxists and the communists and the socialists are like, we can only have a society under these explicit conditions, and we need to tear down capitalism, and we need to do this, that, and the other. Those pipelines, however, don't trend towards violence. If anything, it's kind of like peace, violence, peace, violence, peace, violence, but less and less and less influence of capitalism and authoritarianism, right? That is also where the Overton window is. Authoritarianism is on the right, and independence, like true utopian independence, is on the left. And I don't really know enough creators to really say what the good pipeline would be, but I know I'm somewhere in the steps. I'm like, I think your introduction to leftism would probably be somebody like Bernie Sanders, maybe Hassan. I don't know. I feel like he's a bit more aggressive about left-leaning stuff than Bernie is, but I could be mistaken. In context, maybe they're on the same level. But I know that I am more aggressive about a actual left-wing society than Hassan or Bernie is. So I would be the further left, that next step. But I'm a more aggressive person, right? I'm advocating for the overthrow, the execution, the dismantlement, the forced seizure of resources, assets, and industries. Like, I am 100% advocating for a hostile takeover to achieve the things that I have been talking about. But as far as the actual ideology of leftism, I'm probably centrist, to the right even of Bernie Sanders on some issues. So it's kind of, that's the problem with the left-wing pipeline. There isn't a pipeline, because you either go down the theory, and where Karl Marx, Das Kapital, is treated as the Bible, or you go to the militant side of things, which, well, militant leftism, right? But then you have the factions within. There isn't a unifying voice. There isn't a unifying message or creed that brings it all together into a singular pipeline. There are always a bunch of branches. Mine happens towards governance, because that's what I want to do. I want to govern liberally. I want to govern socially. I want to lead and establish infrastructure, institutions, and yes, leadership that is left-leaning and that drives left-leaning policies, beliefs, values, communities, and societies. But then you talk to the anarchists, and I'm Hitler. You talk to the communists, and I'm Hitler. You talk to socialists, and all of a sudden I'm Hitler. Because I believe in hierarchy, because I believe in a shared control of the management. Ownership belongs to the people, management should belong to the country. Why else have a country, right? And like the death penalty is a thing that should exist, right? These things start to break off in this corner. It's like, well, we can't have violence because if the state can control violence, then they'll always turn against others. Well, hence why ownership needs to be dictated upwards, not necessarily downwards, right? Anyway, without getting into a 3-hour dissertation of Professor Ronan's guide to governance, just go to my website, samronan.com/issues. You can see what I'm talking about. So, all I'm saying is, the right-wing extremism pipeline has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The end being violence and white supremacy. That is the only inevitable outcome, but there is no nuance between it. Because fundamentally, everybody wants that end result from the conservative pipeline. They just don't know it yet, or they're on different stages of it. But it's not like on this right-wing pipeline, there's your fiscal conservatives and your social conservatives and your white supremacists and your neo-Nazis and your ultra-capitalists and your libertarians and so on and so forth, right? There isn't the true separation where they're actually clashing and getting in each other's ways. They are all, ironically enough, trying to use one another to achieve their individual goals, but it feeds into the same main pipeline. It's like the artery going to the finger and transferring into the veins to go back into the heart, right? The heart is still violent white supremacy. It's the white ethno-state, right? That's the ethno-state. Because alt-right conservatism isn't just limited to Europeans. It could also be Chinese. It could also be Japanese. It could also be African, right? So ethno-statism is the ultimate just goal of ultra-conservatism, right? The ethno-state. One culture, one people, homogeny, violence, control. Do as I say or die, right? Supremacy is the ultimate goal. That's the heart. Everything else gets pumped out or back in to the various digis. Whereas with liberalism, it's almost inverted. The goal is Star Trek utopian, but instead of the veins and the heart working together, it's like the blood just pools in the fingers, or the palms, or the wrist, or the forearm, or the shoulders, or wherever else, right? It's like all of the moving parts that make the body function refuse to work together. Honestly, I think, isn't that one of the ways in which autism is described? That the brain isn't able to accurately message the body, which is why stimming and all these other different things happen. So, leftists are autistic. So, all of which is to say, lefties need to get their shit together and their heads out of their asses and work towards the common goal of left-leaning utopianism, right? We need to stop breaking apart, because it's like we all travel the same road of Star Trek utopianism and then branch off, rather than be in our little branches of communism, socialism, anarchism, whatever-ism, and coming into the main road. We are branching off until the big road, the Via Appia, turns into just Main Street. All right. So, I need to catch up to chat here. Wow, that's a lot to read. Okay. I don't want to read. When I want to like Obama, I remember a scene in the document Fahrenheit 11/9, in which the people of Flint are so happy to see Obama because they think he's going to declare Flint an emergency so the feds can come in and fix the issue. Instead, Obama came in, took a fake sip of water, and told them it was all good. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I do remember that. It is absolutely fucking heartbreaking, and it just goes to show the kind of two-faced piece of garbage Obama was. There is not good left-wing propaganda compared to right-wing. Correct, because it's fragmented and it isn't directive. I would be a liberal my whole life, I think, if I never found Hassan by accident. Yeah? But see, even liberalism is a pathway to Star Trek utopianism. The problem is, it branches off bigly and takes up a lot of the distance, a lot of the energy from the Star Trek, and then loops it into the conservative pipeline. It's kind of like, I don't have the bending. Oh, here we go. So say, even better. Say this is the pathway to Star Trek utopianism, right? You got your communists, your socialists, you got your anarchists, and then, oh my goodness. And then you got liberals coming in here and then moving this whole kit and caboodle to going the wrong direction. And it goes towards conservatism. And so you gotta start yanking on everything to charge and hopefully get rid of the liberals, right? So that you can start making the turn back to Star Trek utopianism, but then the liberal just keeps coming back and knocking it out askew. Very, it's a very intricate prop. It's a very intricate prop. Anna, timestamp 50 minutes. It's a prop. I promise. This is a prop. This is a prop. This is a prop. Anyway, what we do need, though, all joking aside, all props aside, is that left-leaning ideology has its pipelines. But instead of driving those ideologies, those different pipelines, into a common cause, all those messages do is take away from the common cause. And what we need to do is figure out a way to drive those causes back to the common good, which is what socialism is, what liberalism is, what utopianism is, what communism is focusing on the common good. And right now, evidently, at least in America, we don't have that message. All right. Let's see. That's the problem. Oh, hold up. Oh, shit. Hold on. I also remember the young Middle Eastern guy who testified in Congress that the drone strikes were causing children in the Middle East not to go out on sunny days because that's when they got bombed. Jesus, that's terrifying. I don't remember that, but I do believe it. So those children are poor, their countries have been destroyed. One of the few pleasures they could have is to go outside and play on a sunny day, and we took that from them under the Obama administration. Yeah. I was first taught Hassan was a terrorist because my favorite right-wing creators always watch 10-second out-of-context clips. Right, and that's exactly what they do. I'm not saying lefties don't do that. I don't do that because I don't watch right-wing commentators. And I ban them from chat. But that is how the right wing builds its thing. It's just like how church is. It's the art of the cult, and I wish I had that article up here. Anna, you might actually have it still saved. It's either a graphic or it's an article describing how cults create a crisis that can only be solved within the cult, right? So when you join a church and it tells you to go out there and proselytize to the masses, and they inevitably get rebuked by the masses for being weird motherfuckers proselytizing to them in modern times, they crawl back to the church all sad and hurt and like, they were mean to me. They didn't want to accept the Lord who is loving and kind and good. Why can't they understand the Lord? And then everybody in the church is like, they're there. It's all good, little Timmy, little Jane, little Susie, little Enrique. It's all good. You're with family now, and we will take care of you. Right? And they do that across, well, all of the denominations, specifically with religion. That's how that works. It's the same exact thing for the right-wing influencers. Aw, little Timmy got rejected by Susie with the big tits. Well, don't worry, little Timmy. Little Susie with the fat ass is a bitch and a whore, and you can do better than her. Come join my Discord, and for the low, low price of $50 a month, I will teach you how to not be a pussy and how to be a man. And then there's like eagles screeching and whatever else, right? And then the guy has like 15 of the big titty, big booty Latina goth chicks all over him that he paid $1,000 a piece to even be near him, right? They do this always. Now, whether it's insecurity, the incels, whether it's pitching racial tensions, black on black crime, oh, you lost your job due to DEI, you lost your job due to quotas, whatever else, black people are inferior, Hispanic people are lazy, or whatever, right? Like whatever racial nonsense that they push, they are pushing it because there are people that feel as though they have been wronged and harmed by policies that had nothing to do with them in the first place. It was their own failures. But in this group, that right-wing influencer, that right-wing content creator, now you and all of your other mediocre, inferior, insecure white men can gather together and unironically jerk each other off and have your sexual repressed fantasies about transgender women while, saying, oh, I'm not gay, but chicks with dicks, am I right? So it's all in the messaging. It's all in the, we will support you when they hurt you. The problem with leftists, and I'm very guilty of it myself, is if you're a piece of shit, I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna hurt your feelings about it, because I don't want to work with you if you're a piece of shit. Go cry to your fucking mother, get some goddamn therapy, touch grass, or get your ass beat, as far as I'm concerned. My goal is this. My mission is to prevent this. The fires, the flammen that is engulfing our society. My goal is, in fact, revolution. Political revolution. Not necessarily violent revolution, but political revolution. That is my goal. And I don't have time to waste on educating every single insecure incel, every single racist piece of shit who lost a job opportunity because their whiteness didn't make up for their lack of ability. And I'm not going to hold their hands. The problem is, I'm not a minority of the people that act like this towards other groups. The worst part, though, is that we also share that disdain with other leftists. And this is where the problem comes. We share this disdain with other leftists because leftists love to get holier than thou. They really love to say, I am the future, and I have the power. Follow me, comrades, and you too can be a hero. And the reality is that's also not true, because just like with white mediocrity not being enough to succeed anymore, neither is just focusing on one narrow-minded vision of liberalism. Like, okay, raise the minimum wage. Well, if we don't raise the minimum wage, how are we going to lower taxes? Stupid. We have to do this first. Okay? Or, well, I agree that Black Lives Matter, but so do gay lives, and we're getting killed too. We're getting beaten and murdered. Our transgender brothers and sisters, they are being terrorized. We can't worry about Black Lives Matter right now. No, motherfucker. You should, definitely should, be uniting your efforts. You should be working with all of the demographics that are being persecuted, not just arguing for your own demographic identity. That's the problem. Your plight and their plight and my plight and the minimum wage and clean energy and trains. They're all united. They're all one. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. And that's the problem with the left. We gatekeep each other even when there is very little sense to it. Like, you want to save the trees and they want to save the whales? Work together. Like, if the tree girls and the whale boys and the horse girls and the grass boys all came together and all camped out in front of town hall at the same fucking time to push the agenda, and then the Black Lives Matter crowd with the Trans Lives Matter crowd backed them up, and then the unions backed them up, gee, it's almost as if strength in numbers accomplishes goals and change, which leads to revolution, which leads to fundamental differences and changes, which allows for growth and prosperity and community and social progress. What? That's the problem. That's the problem with leftists, is we do not know how to work together, and we are very quick to cut people off. That's our problem. Now, I'm part of the problem. I'm not even saying I'm the solution here. I'm not. I am saying, though, we need to put our thinking caps on, our thinking berets, maybe smoke our thinking cigars, and have our support rifles with props with us, so that we can communicate better and focus on our common goals. That's I think where we are failing, and that's where our messaging falls apart. And that is one of the reasons why I am going out of my way to not disparage left-leaning people's liberal ideals broadly. I am trying to save all of my vitriol for the right, center and right. Slap the center, be like, wake up, and then the right just gets blocked. All right. Okay, now I'm very behind on chat. Okay, Andrew Tate's cult. How many more migrants deported till you can buy a house? Is your economy good yet? No. Yeah, that's the question, right? I'm so glad he's not relevant anymore. That was scary. Well, that's the thing. He is becoming more relevant now after CK died, because that audience has to go somewhere. And Tate is still part of the pipeline. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, and that's exactly what we really need to be focusing on. Can you give me a short summary of what your stance on free speech and democracy is? Oh, you have the right to say whatever you want. 100%. When I am president, you can threaten me. You can look at my face and say, I am going to kill you tonight. I will never arrest you for that. I won't even have you arrested for saying it after the fact, or even have you investigated. Do I have to give you my microphone, though? No. If you are threatening black people, if you are threatening organizations or departments or public officials, do you have the right to that platform? No. But you have the right to say whatever you want. And honestly, just because I will make special circumstances and exceptions for threatening me, the president, the governor might not feel the same way. Congress people might not feel the same way. Justices might not feel the same way. Right? County commissioners might not feel the same way. They might investigate your ass for the things that you said. And there are also things that, like, if you say them, it implies violence, it implies things, and they are crimes, like hate crimes, right? You could say it. But just because you say something doesn't mean you won't be held accountable and that there won't be consequences for those actions. And certain speech does not deserve a platform. Because, again, you have the right to say anything under the sun, and the government does not have the right to tell you you can't say that, or at the very least, if you can't say that, nobody can say that, to include the government. See, that's where the regulation of speech gets a little weird, right? If you threaten the president, that's a very broadly held thing. It's like, oh, you threatened him, like that's credible. We should probably look into that, right? If you threaten black people, if you think black people should be killed, and you post that on TikTok or Facebook or whatever else, right? And you get arrested for inciting violence, for disturbing the peace, if you're charged because of that, like, play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Anybody would get arrested for that. I would get arrested for that as president. Granted, in a functioning democracy, which is, to your point, what is freedom of speech and democracy. But in an ideal democracy, everyone is held equally under the law, to include the Supreme Court, the president, and his cabinet. And especially members of the military, and especially, especially people in government, and especially people who would enforce those laws or carry out the arrests of those laws, right? If we don't have equal prosecution and enforcement under the law, which we don't currently, we most definitely do not, you don't have a democracy. You have the veneer of democracy that is actually oligarchy or corporatocracy or some of the other versions thereof. That's why I'm loving it when I see Free Palestine and fuck ICE protesters together. Exactly. True Steel, I hate the whales. Anna says that they're fat. Wow, Anna. Strange coming from... you think that I'm the solution? Oh, that's sweet. And Apolitical said, damn, I did not expect that. Yeah, well, I like to keep everybody on their toes and, lead by example and actually create a society that, functions. I know this isn't foreign affairs news, but ABC just pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show indefinitely because of what he said about Charlie Kirk. The FCC threatened ABC. ABC caved. Now, I find Kimmel not funny, but this is scary. Yeah, because isn't Jim... Let me just make sure I know I'm thinking of the right person, because I am bad about that. Oh, I was definitely not thinking of the right person. Maybe I was thinking of Jimmy Fallon? Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, yeah, Jimmy Kimmel. Now I know who you're talking about. All right. So, yeah. That is a violation of free speech. And again, this is a terrorist regime threatening free speech, threatening news, independent networks, because it's going against their policies. The other thing is, CK is an avowed white supremacist. If you actually aired his speeches and his rhetoric on the news, it could only ever be construed as hate speech. But they're not doing that, and they're just... The outrage against him is what they're using to justify all of this nonsense. Which is, again, propaganda. Absolutely, Simply Steve. Thank you for joining the stream. Free Palestine. Jimmy Kimmel is a left-leaning centrist. Yeah, no, I knew who he was at first. I was thinking... was I thinking Jimmy Fallon? I might have been thinking Jimmy Fallon. Yes! I was thinking Jimmy Fallon. And that's not who we were obviously talking about. So, we are entering this terrorist regime's stage, step, whatever, of totalitarian takeover, where they are now trying to consolidate their control and influence over the media, which has been happening slowly over the past 8 months. But it is definitely consolidating at this point. It is definitely coalescing. The media was much more standoffish and resistant to these kinds of direct attempts to curb the rhetoric or to influence what they air. And now all of a sudden they're capitulating. Because again, they are complicit. What? Hold on. Brian Kilmeade got to offer an apology for saying genocide homeless people, but the show still goes on. Right. And that was on Fox News, I believe. What the hell is this news? You can't talk bad about Charlie Kirk shit or you'll get arrested. It's a joke. It is a joke. It's also very authoritarian. Like, again, there is no nuance to this. This is terrorism. This is domestic terrorism. This is violating free speech. This is violating the free press. Like, it is the very thing that the founding fathers, which I know many leftists don't give a flying fuck about them anyway, but the fundamental tenets of the Constitution, free speech and a free press, were written explicitly in the Bill of Rights to prevent exactly what is currently happening. And the fact that it isn't being prevented, because it is currently happening, is a failure of the checks and balance system, which again was designed to prevent what is happening from happening, because nobody thought to put in an ultimate check and balance, which is, if there's ever collusion between all three branches to undermine the Constitution, they have to immediately be removed from office. That provision doesn't exist, ergo it doesn't exist. Ergo, they can do whatever the fuck they want. Now, many will argue that the Second Amendment is the ultimate fail-safe. Okay. Well, and hear me out. What if the populace is also complicit in the corruption, in the authoritarianism, in the abuse of checks and balances, of the erosion of constitutional power and authority? What if a significant portion of the population, the same population that controls 97% of all firearms, what if that population is in support? Then the Second Amendment is also rendered useless. Do you see how maybe having a little asterisk somewhere in there saying, by the way, if this entire document fails to prevent a dictatorship or an authoritarian regime or the attempt at empire or a divine right of kings being formed, if all of these provisions fail, break glass, smash glass, go to Appendix A. Appendix A reads, it becomes the duty of every single sovereign citizen to rise up and overthrow their government, and or every policing institution with the right to arrest needs to immediately arrest every single person with any ounce of authority or power in the country. Like, those two bullet points need to be explicitly added to any constitution from this point forward, because clearly, with enough time and enough effort, propaganda, you can create the exact material conditions that allow authoritarian regimes to emerge, even if you have Star Trek society. You want to know how I know this? Because there have been plenty of novelizations, films, and television series depicting the right-wing radicalization of a utopian Star Trek society. It has happened time and time again because there is always a point where security, safety, nationalism, pride, honor, identity becomes the defining trait. And that's the only spark. It just needs to happen once and not be crushed for it to take root. So the provision needs to be put in place. Hey, if this happens, arrest everybody and start over. And if anybody tries to undo that provision, definitely arrest that motherfucker and then definitely start over and make sure that these two provisions stay. Like, I don't know how else to put it. I really don't. The FCC didn't go after this president for what he said while he had The Apprentice, but this is okay. Yeah, no. Are they testing the waters? No. They are not testing the waters. In fact, the testing the waters occurred 7 months ago. 8 months ago, if we're being honest, because of the little Roman salute that occurred. That was the testing the waters. This is after they have already dove into the waters and found a few things and started stirring up trouble. This is not testing the waters. This is after months of normalizing testing the waters, months of manufacturing public consent. That's what's happening right now. Brian Kilme. I might have mispronounced his name. I'll admit that. Didn't Red Overlord say Muslims celebrated without proof about 9/11? Yeah, that's exactly. You're not wrong, Pop. Like that's not the issue. Him lying is not the issue. That's a fact. That's not up for debate. He lied. He also wasn't held accountable. And that's, again, part of those little seeds. By not being held accountable, those seeds were able to take root and grow and be watered and grow and be watered until we have the fascism that we have today. People like this president talk about murdering people for criticizing him, but there's no accountability. Agreed. You believe in eternal Ronanism country. So, that is a great question, Apolitical. I do not believe that whatever policies I enact will be eternal. What I do believe, and I want to make sure my throat doesn't give it out on me when I say this. My belief for Ronanism, for lack of a better word, is that when Ronanism is implemented, during my first term, we will have undone enough of the damage that has been caused by capitalism and had enough opportunity to experience life the way it was designed for our evolutionary track, which is, again, community and curiosity. I think after my first term, people have gotten a taste of that and want more of it. To which I would get elected a second time and be able to expand upon it from there. My hope is that 8 years of functioning society, the way society should exist, and sure, I could be wrong. It's an ideal. I could be romanticizing it for all I know. My vision, my goal is to create the most romanticized, idealized version of society. All material conditions are met. All needs are met. Everybody's hobbies can be met and pursued. Work and labor and all of that is not just respected and valued, it is celebrated. And for 8 years, that is the thing that is happening. My hope is that whoever takes my place, or if something happens to where I'm allowed to do more terms, whatever the case may be, whenever I am no longer the person with their hand on the wheel, whoever follows my footsteps, I hope there has been enough of a shift in society to where that person will continue steering the ship in the direction that I set it, or even further liberal left. Because otherwise, we're going to have 8 years of prosperity to just go right back to consumer capitalism and imperialism. So, eternal Ronanism is only possible if I become the Sith Lord. So what in the fuck? That is a huge bug. Is it alive? Okay. Okay, no. Bruh. Okay. So I do believe Ronanism has the potential to set the stage for a long-term prosperity. But the problem is what happens after I'm gone, right? And again, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm fighting for global conquest. I will be the leader of the world and the universe. But in order for something like that to fundamentally shift global society and global economics and global governance, you would need revolutions in every single country, and then for each of those revolutions to adopt Ronanism in their country. And I don't know if, I don't know if that would happen. What was that? It was a cricket, I think. That died down here. Because even though I sealed my basement, the Oval Office, I mean. Even though I sealed the Oval Office, there are still some parts that are not sealed and make it through, so. Anywho, yes. Hopefully, right. Not that I want to talk about things in the form of an addiction, but correct. Hopefully 8 years of the good juice makes them hungry and thirsty for more. I'm not about the lies. I'm on about him saying what he wants while he had a TV program subject to the FCC, and they didn't go after him. They said trying it was anti-free speech, but look at them liking this. No, that's, again, the hypocrisy. The further shift to right-wing authoritarianism is why we are where we are at today. And that's the problem. Right, the problem will be the capitalists sabotaging it, but the only capitalists that'll be able to sabotage it are ones that exist outside of the United States, because there will be no capitalists in the United States of America during my administration, because they will be dead. They will be purged. Our institutions, our industries will be publicly owned. The stock market will be abolished, and anyone who wants to do business in this country, outside of this country, will adhere to our laws of social ownership, or they will be purged and refused entry into our country. So, all of which is to say, I should probably... See, this is why I have hand sanitizer on hand. When I touch the bugs. Ugh. Alright. So now... that we have gone thoroughly off to left field. Let's carry on with some more videos. Wait, did we? Are we fucking kidding right now? When I first saw these two videos, I thought we were talking about the one from last week and that was still in the news cycle. We seriously hit another fucking boat off of the goddamn coast of, Venezuela? Like, are we fucking serious right now?
Today, I've got my RTA mock system and Coyote.
Is this really?
He was asked about his announcement that the U.S. military exploded, hit with a missile, presumably a boat allegedly being used by Venezuelan drug cartels. This is the second one in recent weeks. The president posting this video appearing to show the moment that the U.S. military hit this boat. CNN national security correspondent Natasha Bertrand is here with me. Natasha, this is now the second such strike.
Extrajudicial killing, slaughter of foreign nationals in international waters to intimidate another foreign country and challenging their sovereignty while justifying it as a narco boat. So, I say we, the United States of America, this terrorist regime with Donald J. Trump as its terrorist head of state is attacking sovereign citizens of other sovereign countries with our military, which is a problem on two fronts. First, the fact that we're doing it, and the second is that our military is following those orders and committing war crimes. So, the military committing the war crimes by following the illegal orders, and the fact that the terrorist-in-chief is issuing those orders. Those are two separate, but highly related problems. And again, when I talk about retribution and accountability, every single Marine on those boats are getting dishonorably discharged and probably executed. If it's up to me, I'm executing every single one of them. Every single one of them for crimes against humanity and war crimes. Period. Dot. We are trained from basic training and throughout our entire military career through CBTs, LOAC, and Geneva Conventions regulations, and our own ability to read the various articles of the UCMJ, we are taught all the fucking time that we have the right, the authority, the duty, and yes, the obligation to disobey unlawful orders. The obligation. And it's in our oath of enlistment to obey the lawful orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed above me. Lawful orders. There is no lawful order that is lawful that includes murdering unidentified civilian craft in international waters. So, as far as I am concerned, every single Marine on those boats are guilty of war crimes, violating the UCMJ, federal law, and violating their own oaths of enlistment and commissioning. And in a time of war, in a time of conflict, aggressing against another country by committing an act of war, those are all crimes punishable by death in the UCMJ. And as Commander-in-Chief, I will be more than delighted to carry out said punishment with my own two hands if necessary. Because we cannot function as a society, as a free people, if we are the ones literally violating other people's spaces, waters, and sovereignty. And being the ones to directly violate the laws that we helped establish and create and found in the first place. So no, as Commander-in-Chief, I will personally execute probably the commanders, to make a real point home, the leadership of those boats, and everybody else will either get firing squad or hangings. Because I'm not gonna, let me be very clear on why I am so gung-ho about using the death penalty. So gung-ho. You know how much a bullet costs? You know how much rope costs? You know how much it costs to feed, shelter, clothe, and bathe, and keep medically healthy an individual for the rest of their life? It's significantly more than a bullet and rope. I can tell you that right now. So, I'm going to be fiscally responsible and accelerate their life sentences to a much more critical point of their life, and consolidate it all into one rope or bullet. Because we're not wasting time on war criminals. We are going to charge you. We're going to give you your trial. Your actions will obviously be what they are. You will be sentenced to life with the death penalty, and then that shall be carried out post-haste. So, the news are not reporting this, but I follow a political influencer who lives in Venezuela, and he said Chinese jets arrived in Venezuela today. They are there to send the U.S. a message, don't fuck with Venezuela. And what does America do anyway? Act like a bunch of fucking terrorists and mess with Venezuela. So, World War III is literally brimming. That's outstanding. Anna, 1 minute and 27 as a timestamp.
By the U.S. on an alleged drug cartel vessel. Tell us more.
We really don't know a whole lot. Just like the first strike, we don't know, for example, what kind of munition was used. We don't know for sure how the U.S. was able to get the intelligence about who was actually on this boat, and whether they could know for sure who was operating that boat, and whether they were, in fact, even members of a drug cartel. There is a lot that still needs to be disclosed about these military operations against these boats that are in the Caribbean, because even when they were briefing Congress last week, the Department of Defense, they were not able to definitively tell lawmakers and staffers that the targets of these operations were definitively members of that drug cartel that the president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization, Tren de Aragua. The whole argument that the administration is making here is that because these are alleged members of that drug cartel and because they were designated as foreign terrorist organizations, the president therefore has the authority to carry out operations against them. But we don't know, even from President Trump's tweet today or his post on Truth Social, just who these people were in this boat. But the U.S. military has said repeatedly, and so has President Trump, that these operations are going to continue. The U.S. just sent 10 F-35 fighter jets down to Puerto Rico. They are conducting exercises with the Marine Corps down there as well. Clearly a lot of attempts to send a message here to the Venezuelans as well. But as you can see, this kind of kinetic action has not stopped, and there are a ton of questions surrounding the legality of that.
So let me be clear, though. As soon as I learned about Obama, I would have started questioning. I did start questioning everything he was doing. But even when I was in the military, active duty serving under Obama, if Obama had done anything like this, I would have been livid. I would have gone out of my way to cause some sort of shit show about this. Because what was it? There was something where I think we were beginning to surge somewhere in the Middle East. And I immediately went to the legal office and I said, hey, how do I file for a conscientious objector if I get orders to go here? Because I don't believe that going there, and I wish I remembered it more clearly. It must have just been an incident. Maybe it was like the bombing on Yemen or something like that. I don't remember. But I do remember going to legal and asking about conscientious objector status and what it would take to get filed for it. And I found, oh no. This is while I was a reservist. Okay, so it wasn't while I was under Obama. I was a reservist and it was during the Trump administration. That's what it was. I still don't remember what the event was. But I know my unit was on the cycle to go deploy. And I was like, I'm not deploying under this piece of shit. I'm just not going to fucking do it. And I was trying to figure out ways to file for conscientious objector status in case they did try and order me to go fight in a war or a conflict that he was trying to instigate. So, point being, while I was wearing the uniform on a regular basis, I was faced with this kind of thing, and I did stand against it immediately. So I am proud of myself for that much, at least. I wasn't so far bamboozled that something like this wouldn't have made me open up my eyes. But here and again, these military people that are briefing Congress and doing this, that, and the other, and trying to justify their actions by saying, well, Trump ordered us to, are trying to use the Nuremberg defense that, well, we were ordered to do these things, so we can't be found guilty. And unfortunately, following orders is not an excuse for committing crimes. So, again, let me be clear. Read my lips. Every single person on those boats, all of them, I don't care if it's the engineer, I don't care if it's the artilleryman, I don't care if it's the captain, I don't care if it's a pilot, I don't care if they are just on leave and happen to get on the boat. If you are on that boat and a part of that mission, and you are not raising hell, actively raising hell, and being put into the brig or being sent back to the mainland, if you are on that boat following orders, you will be charged accordingly, you will be sentenced accordingly, and I may have the distinct personal pleasure of carrying out those sentences. And in case there's any ambiguity to what those sentences are, it is the death penalty in a time of war or military conflict. So, just to be clear.
Particularly because as of right now, the president is really leaning on his Article 2 authority as president to carry out these kinds of attacks. But experts are saying, look, we're not in an armed conflict with Tren de Aragua, with these drug cartels. So what really is the authority there to conduct these kinds of lethal operations against these people?
Right. Yeah. One, where's the authority? There isn't. Two, that authority stems from the fact that you have to confirm that they are in fact Tren de Aragua or Tren de whatever the fuck. Tren. The same thing that is steroids. If you don't have confirmation that they are part of the group, then your authority doesn't exist. Tren de Aragua. Okay. So, if you can't confirm that they are Tren de Aragua, and you can't definitively, proudly and loudly say that those people on those boats are for Tren de Aragua, then guess what? Killing them is a war crime. Especially if you can't recover the bodies because you used fucking missiles to vaporize them. It's committing a war crime and covering it up in the same act. Again, Trump is getting the death penalty. If he's alive when I'm in the White House, he's getting the death penalty. Like, there is no... He's getting it. And for the record, so is Pete Hegseth, and so is all of the secretaries of the military, the DOD, and all of the generals that are allowing this shit to happen. I am taking out the entire chain of command that has allowed these atrocities to occur and have done nothing to stop it. They're done. They're not going to retire. They're not going to be able to just, I'll retire and go to my Villa de la Croix in Maine. No. You're going to die as a disgraced general or captain or sergeant major or whatever for aiding and abetting a terrorist regime and not doing your job to resist the illegal orders that were put against you. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of death. There's going to be a lot of death during my administration in the first 100 days. 1 minute or 1 hour and 36 minutes, Anna. Another timestamp. War crimes on top of war crimes. That's crazy to say while in the U.S. Yeah, well, that's where we are today. And J.D. Vance. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely, J.D. Vance. Charge him with crimes against humanity. Honestly, the fact that Brazil charged Bolsonaro with crimes against democracy, like, bam, that's another thing that we can do. Crimes against democracy, humanity, and war crimes. The three, the trifecta. So, absolutely. Is that within freedom of speech? What do you mean? What do you mean by freedom of speech? Because issuing illegal orders has nothing to do with free speech. It has to do with issuing illegal. It's about using your authority illegally. Reconvene the Nuremberg trials. Oh no, 100%. And we're going to be holding those executions throughout the 50 states too. Oh, what I'm saying? What I'm saying is probably terrorism to these pieces of shit. Because I am talking about using my authority and our criminal justice system to hold them accountable for their actions, which will result in their death. By my little digis, if at all possible. So, it is free speech, because I'm not sitting here saying I want to kill Trump while he is in office. I am saying, as president, I will use my authority to arrest and prosecute every single motherfucker in his administration that has been aiding and abetting his policies, his platform, his governance across every spectrum of politics, industry, and the military. I will then prosecute them, and when they are found guilty for their myriad crimes, they will be sentenced accordingly with a preference for the death penalty. That isn't a threat. That is a fact. That is a thing that is going to happen with my authority as president. I'm not threatening them. I am saying exactly what will happen within my first 100 days as president. 1 hour and 38 minutes. Next timestamp. So, as far as free speech goes, this is a campaign promise. This is me campaigning for presidential run 2028. Like this is my congressional campaign too. Like I am campaigning. This is me promising the people that I will hold these motherfuckers accountable brutally and permanently. They will never have a chance to threaten our society ever again, or any other society ever again. They will be erased from the face of the earth and make sure that they can never be a threat to anybody, anywhere, at any time, ever again. So, make sure you get Pash. Oh, again, everybody in the administration. Everybody. But see, here's the thing about throwing him in the windowless cell for the rest of his days. We still have to feed him. We still have to clothe him. We still have to make sure that he has water. And we still have to make sure that he has medical care. That takes time. That takes money. He might live for another 40 years, and I'm not paying for 40 years of that person's existence. You know how much a bullet costs? You know how much a piece of rope costs? Significantly less. How do we actually go on from here, Sam? Do we all just stay silent and fear something may happen that's bad? I don't get it. I am truly scared that what you say can be taken as something else and then you get disappeared. What do we do? Well, how about this? Let's martyr myself while I'm alive, all right? If they come after me, rise up, my children, rise up, my brothers and sisters, and burn this motherfucker down and rebuild this nation in your image. For you are the future, and you are my children, you are my comrades, and you deserve a life worth living. Rise up, my children, and fight back against the tyrants that would oppress you, if I am disappeared. In the meantime, spread the word. Spread the word that there is a guy, Samuel Ronan, who is running for Congress, who will then run for the U.S. presidency, who will hold this administration and everyone associated with it accountable, seeking the death penalty in as every single case that is possible. Because we deserve better, and I have an outline of how we can achieve better on the website, samronan.com/issues. So the more we spread this message, creating the left-leaning pipeline, the more we spread this propaganda, this message, this word, this call to arms, this actual hope, this thing that we can build towards, the more we can do that, the more we can build the momentum of our movement, and use it as a weapon against fascism, against this terrorist regime. So, that is what we do. What would you do with the Charlie Kirk shooter? Death penalty. He's still committed murder. Here's the thing, like, our prison system should focus on rehabilitation, but here's the thing. Okay, maybe I'm too quick to use the death penalty on all murderers. If you committed murder because you were ideologically radicalized, the first step should be to deprogram you from that radicalization. If you can be deprogrammed and actually be verified as deprogrammed from that radical ideology, and then you can be rehabilitated to rejoin society, I think you should. That should be the point of prisons, of incarceration, of a criminal justice system. You should be rehabilitatable. And if not, why are we going to waste time, money, and energy housing and feeding and clothing you when there is no chance of your rehabilitation or re-entry into society? That, to me, is a waste of resources. And that might make me a really bad guy on paper, but if you are an unrepentant murderer, an unrepentant pedophile, an unrepentant cannibal, rapist, and you just cannot be reformed, you cannot be rehabilitated. We tried for 5 years, 10 years even. Okay, that's 5 or 10 years of money that we wasted on you. Goodbye. All right. Treat them like they do people in El Salvador. But see, that's what they do in El Salvador is also inhumane. And then they do just randomly kill people in the killing grounds. It's hard to guess what you think for me. Well, if you think about it from the perspective of a revolutionary who has a healthy respect and admiration for the death penalty, my line of logic starts to make more sense. Charlie who? Exactly. The more we give oxygen to these right-wing sociopaths, the more opportunity they have to be heard and seen, and thus driving traffic to them. What we need is more traffic driven to left-wingers. But which left-wingers are doing actual work? Hassan? He's not doing real work. Kyle Kalensky? He's not doing real work. The Young Turks? They're becoming neolibs rapidly. What's another one? The Minority Report. I think they're still good. You got Taylor Lawrence, who is good 90% of the time. You got Al Jazeera, which isn't even an American entity, right? So, like, even with our left-leaning independent news networks and our left-leaning ideologues, there aren't leaders, right? There aren't thought leaders either. There aren't people that are driving the movement into a major pipeline of mutual support. Everybody talks about mutual aid and mutual support and mutual growth, and yet none of that infrastructure ever exists, and nobody ever actually truly embraces it or embodies it. So there is that too.
I heard the president talk about how drugs have killed so many Americans. And the other day, I think he even used a figure like 300 million Americans, which of course would be almost every American dead. Obviously, he misspoke. But beyond that is the question about the legal authority. Does that count in the kind of combat that Article 2 authority is supposed to be for? Natasha Bertrand, thanks so much. Let's bring in Professor Rachel Van Lanningham, retired U.S. Air Force JAG officer or military attorney. She's
Air
now
Force
a
JAG,
co-associate
let's
dean
go.
at Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles. Professor, I guess the simple question is, are these strikes legal? Who determines who's on these boats? It's not like he's taking out a military group that is posing a direct threat to the United States as we traditionally understand it.
All right. Bet. Does the professor and the retired U.S. Air Force JAG, does she say what it is, which is that these aren't legal attacks, or does she support it? Place your bets. Let's see. I'll stop, but would you not have given Charlie Kirk the death penalty? No. Because Charlie Kirk wouldn't have a platform, right? Hate speech would be deplatformed, right? Inciting violence against minority groups and other demographics would get you deplatformed, right? And then arrested, right? The death penalty, right, is for people who are irredeemable, who cannot be rebuilt into society, reclaimed into society. Could Charlie Kirk be deprogrammed? I don't know. I did say he was the Gerbils of our time, right? Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm saying, would I outright give him the death penalty? I don't think that I would. I would deplatform him and arrest him for that, and then force him to go through the rehabilitation process. I think he would end up getting the death penalty. I mean, I guess let me rephrase, because I get where you're asking me this question. If Charlie Kirk were alive when I became president, would I arrest him and charge him in the same way that I would arrest and charge everybody else in the Trump administration and his associates? If that is your question, then the answer is yes. Then, if that is your question, if I'm understanding that correctly, then yes, I would charge him with the same exact crimes that I would charge everyone else in the administration and sentence him accordingly and definitely seek the death penalty. But would I, in my administration, if a Charlie Kirk type person were to rise in prominence during my administration, would I just immediately axe them? No. I would deplatform them first, and then I would arrest them and put them through the rehabilitation programs. And if they couldn't be reformed from there, well, I'm pretty sure at that point I will have committed a lot of death penalties for a lot of people, and society might be like, hey, you need to slow your fucking roll. So, even though I say I would seek the death penalty in every case of the Trump administration, the terrorist regime, and his associates, that doesn't necessarily mean I would get the death penalty for them in every single one of those cases. But I would seek it. I hope that clarifies it. All right. Does the U.S. Air Force JAG... So the reason I'd still give Charlie Shooters the death penalty is because he did not have legal rights to do so. No, I'd give him the death penalty because I don't think he is going to be able to be rehabilitated into society. I personally don't believe that. Now, just because I would give somebody the death penalty, just like in the current court of law, the judge can sentence a convicted felon to death, and then it still gets the appeal process. It still gets the rigmarole of the criminal justice system, right? Unless I have the absolute authority to wield the death penalty in my own hands with my own power and authority and say so, I can seek whatever I want. But that doesn't mean the system will necessarily give it to me. Does that make sense? So, I could seek the death penalty 99 times out of 100. 99.999% of the time. That doesn't necessarily mean I'll get it. I hope that clarifies your question, though.
Hey, Jake, thanks for having me. The lack of transparency by the administration when they're using lethal force in the American people's name in a very unique manner is deeply troubling. It sure looks like the president, on his own accord, is deciding to kill people extrajudicially, extrajudicial killings outside of an armed conflict, outside of war. And there's a binary here. The president can use lethal force, can kill people either because they're posing an imminent deadly threat against Americans or American interests, or we're at war and the president has properly identified them as being a member of an armed group, either a military or some type of terrorist organization for which he has authority to designate that we're at war against from Congress, and is killing them based on their status. And we really don't see evidence of either.
So, I guess if your bet was that she would dance around the legality of the actions and not on public television accuse him of mandating an illegal extrajudicial killing, you would have won that bet, because she is saying everything under the sun except for actually saying what he did was illegal.
It's declared that these individuals were members of some narco-terrorist organization, which is a criminal organization, and he's not applying criminal law that is the standard law enforcement use of force regarding why not just arrest them, why not detain them and prosecute them in a U.S. court of law.
Right, although the president did declare Trenda Aragua a terrorist group, a narco-terrorist group in February, I suppose that would be the justification for treating them.
No! She just said, unless Congress allowed it, and in case, it was confirmed. Even if, oh my God! Ah! The lady just said, you have to, under all circumstances, to issue a legal kill order as president, you have to either A, be in war, or B, our country has to be under imminent threat. Those are the two justifying moments where the president can issue a kill order. But in order for that kill order to be legal, she just fucking said, you have to verify their identity. Christ. And this is why neoliberals and the complicit media in our fucking country are also getting the same fucking treatment. The same fucking treatment. They are bending over backwards, dancing around the issues, allowing this terrorist regime to commit acts of terror against maybe criminals. Maybe they are Trenda Aragua. Maybe they fucking are. But until or unless we can confirm that, it is extrajudicial killing. It is unlawful. It is a violation of the powers of the president. And this lady and the CNN host are both guilty of not saying that out loud and explicitly. Fucking what's the word here? Begins with a C. Complicit motherfuckers.
The way that the United States treated ISIS or Al-Qaeda. Obviously, we discussed a lot of issues like this during the Obama years when he increased the use of drones to strike individuals like Anwar al-Awlaki, the American-born,
which
I believe
was
he was Al-Qaeda
confirmed
cleric. President Trump says the strike was in international waters. What is the jurisdictional argument there? Could he make the same argument anywhere in the world?
Well, he can make an argument that we're at war against this group, but Congress didn't give him the authority just simply because he declared them a foreign terrorist organization, that we're actually in an armed conflict and therefore using law of war authorities. There are peacetime law authorities that exist, and he's exceeding those. The authorization to use military force that Congress passed in the wake of 9/11 was stretched by concurrent administrations, but it was stretched against groups such as ISIS that were engaging kinetic lethal operations against U.S. allies and U.S. interests. These drug cartels, there's been no evidence that they're the drug problem and fentanyl poisoning over the American people is atrocious. It's a national security threat, but it's a criminal problem. If we start just killing our way out of criminal problems, I don't see an end to that whatsoever. And so the president cannot make up authorities, whether or not it's here in the United States or internationally. Peacetime law enforcement authorities applied in those international waters unless we're at war. And I have not heard Congress say that we are at war against this organization, despite President Trump's labeling of them as such. They can be arrested, prosecuted, but not just murdered in cold blood. And that's what...
Well, it took you long enough to fucking get to the fucking point and actually say what needed to be said. Holy Christ. Anna, if you're listening and not, I don't know. I think we were at 1 hour and 57 minutes as our timestamp. Their job is, how can we justify this bullshit every day? Yeah, and it took her to the very end of this video to actually say what needed to be said. Fucking insanity. My God. I don't think I've actually shouted in a stream in a while. I mean, I did crash out with the crimes against democracy. I did crash out a little bit, but like, am I wrong? Oh, okay. So did I yell? Get really angry before? Okay. I'm sorry. Man, it's bipolar in here. Let me tell you, it is bipolar on this stream. What? How can you transform into the Hulk? Well, that's the secret, Cap. I'm always angry. Wow. So, we got there eventually. Jesus fucking Christ. You know what? I saw something earlier down here that had to do with Francesca. You know what? We need a little bit of Francesca. We need to lower our blood pressure a little bit. Francesca Albanese. Please.
Is private student loan debt wrecking your life?
My blazing soul.
You really need to talk to Y-Refi. Y-Refi.
Okay, well, let's have a look at what's going on with the United Nations, because the Human Rights Council there is due to hold a briefing on the dire human rights situation in Gaza and across the occupied Palestinian territories. Hashim Ahilbara joins us now from Geneva, where the UN Special Rapporteur will be speaking. Hashim, what are we expecting here out of this meeting?
It is going to be a busy day, Butcher, today and tomorrow, where we're going to get many reports and updates on the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Motherfucker. If you say humanitarian situation one more fucking time, I am going to reach into the fucking past, crossing through space and time to where you currently are 2 days ago and wring your fucking neck. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a genocide. It is not a fucking situation.
In particular, with what looks like a growing consensus within the international community on the need to take actions now and stand up to the ideals of international human rights. Criticism coming from many leaders about the need to take action and calling what happens in Gaza as joint genocide. I'm being now joined by the Special Rapporteur of the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 19...
All right. Everybody, feel free to redeem points for Francesca. Hallowed be her name.
1967, Francesca Albanese, thank you very much indeed. In the many reports you've conducted, you've said that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. You have an upcoming report in October where I think you will, the tendency is to blame the international community for its silence over what is happening, complicity, and some countries providing assistance to the Israelis despite what is happening.
The first time I spoke about genocide, it was in March 2024, when in my report, Anatomy of a Genocide, I concluded that there were reasonable grounds to believe that Israel was committing acts of genocide in Gaza. Never had I thought or dared thinking through the genocide framework of what was happening to the Palestinians, had I known better, because they were the precursor of this. However, I wouldn't say that my aim is to put the blame on the international community. I wish the international community came back to senses and realized that in the continuous granting of impunity to Israel, there is the path for the capsizing of the international legal order. I mean, this is about Palestine, the Palestinians, the Israelis in the present and long run, but it's also about the stability of the region and what's happening. Clearly it's connected to the Gaza Strip, but it calls upon the responsibility of members.
All right. I would never on God's green earth interrupt Francesca Albanese from saying a fucking thing. If I was at a place giving a speech and Francesca was there, I would say, hello, everybody. I know you came here for me to speak because I'm the president, or this is my victory speech for Congress, or some other thing. But Francesca's here, so I'm going to hurry up and shut the fuck up and hand the mic over to the only person who fucking matters on this planet, Francesca Albanese. But this is a stream, and I do like to upload these to our YouTube channel, which is Ronan Streams, and you run into copyright infringement issues if you don't interrupt other content creators' videos. So that is the only reason why I am even pausing this video. I would like to just sit here and eat my chips and listen to her for the next 5 minutes.
States not to violate international law as they breathe, but use international law as and respect thereof as the perimeter and the limit to political action.
Now, if you look at the latest figures from the health authorities in Gaza, more than 64,000 people killed, more than 164 people injured. There are still key players, key countries doing trade with Israel, providing significant military assistance, massive, important wealth funds which are still doing business with Israel. Is this something that you think must change in the future?
But absolutely. To be honest, these should have changed decades ago, because Israel has been building illegal colonies in the illegally occupied territory, which are war crimes, and committing a number of crimes against humanity, including apartheid, which is fully documented. And this should have trigger the compliance with the law of state responsibility, which obliges member state not to aid and assist a state which is committing international wrongdoing, all the more as these amount to crimes. There should have been instead accountability, opening proceedings toward.
Francesca only cooks, and she cooks with the purest virgin olive oil. She, from what I don't know if she, honestly, if she hits her kids, I'm going to ask the kids, what did they do to piss her off? What did they do to deserve her beating him? They should they should apologize to her for making her beat them for whatever dumb shit they did. I don't see her doing wrong. Like, her husband, like, that motherfucker better worship the ground she walks on. Better be breathing the air that she breathes. That he should be going out of his way to make sure that she has dinner ready when she comes home. Like, that woman should want for nothing. She has never done anything wrong in her entire life, and I am aware. And we all get it. No one talks about the apartheid anymore. The 48th she's going to be the special counsel to the president. Let me tell you that right now. Is she talking about the apartheid? I wasn't. I was listening, but I didn't pick up on everything.
The people who might have been committed crimes and supporting the International Criminal Court. There has been a clear derail of this process. But now this is a genocide that could have never happened without the support and involvement of a number of actors. In my last report, I spotlighted the private sector, which has been a pillar or other than a profiteer in the illegality of occupation that has turned into the illegality of into the crime of genocide. But there are also member states behind it. There are member states who are actively supporting, actively involved in designing the future of Palestine and the Palestinians. There are others arming, selling. This is wrong, legally and morally wrong.
You may not be able to travel to New York in October for the report because of the sanctions imposed on you by the United States of America. They blame you for trying to investigate American and Israeli citizens, and they say this is not something you should be doing. Could you give us how do you react to this?
I keep on saying what I've said before. First of all, it's appalling that a member state resorts to unilateral measures which are illegal against a UN person, a UN official or UN independent experts, as is in my case. I'm protected under the UN Charter. I'm protected under the Convention on Privileges and Immunities. And yes, I'm the first UN person to be sanctioned. I truly, truly hope I'm also the last one, but I'm not the only one. There are judges and prosecutors of the International Criminal Court, Palestinian human rights organizations who have been sanctioned by the UN, and the implications are enormous. It's really impairing as a person. It creates a chilling effect around you because anyone who engages with a US sanctioned person risks to be arrested and to be subjected to very heavy fines. So the sanctions must be withdrawn one way or another.
Francesca Albanese, Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. Thank you very much.
Oh, she's done? Damn it. I was going to interrupt and say something so that we can listen to her some more.
Indeed, for talking to Al Jazeera. Thank you. Richard, sir, as you can see...
Well, we don't give a shit about you, buddy. We do not give a shit about you. Again, the only person who consistently talks about the involvement of other powers in aiding and abetting Israel, the fact that there are private companies profiting off of the genocide, and the fact that it is 100% could have been preventable. So, those things notwithstanding, she also talks about the apartheid. She talks about all these things that literally nobody, to include Al Jazeera, their regular reporters, don't have the courage to say. Even Amy Goodman, I haven't heard her say with the same finality and specificity, the same things that Francesca is saying. Even Democracy Now! Doesn't have the courage to lay it out the way that she has. And that's why we love listening to Francesca. So, yeah. Sorry, I could talk about... No, I'm not saying Amy Goodman's bad. I'm saying that even with Amy Goodman in the conversation, she does not hold a candle to Francesca. Okay. So this is the Venezuela stuff. Not that I want to listen to Trump, but I think this video might have a little bit more.
We're Phoenix Energy, a family-owned oil
talk
company
about rather
focused
than
on
just
unleashing
the
American
Russian
oil
strike,
from North
which
Dakota and Montana.
Obviously, they're still at war and it's progressing.
Ultimatum to NATO countries, saying he's ready to impose major sanctions on Russia, but only if they stop buying Russian oil. Moscow said this week that negotiations to end the war in Ukraine are going nowhere. It also comes just days after Russian drones were shot down inside Polish airspace. We've got full coverage of these developments. With us now is CNN senior White House reporter Betsy Klein and correspondent Nada Bashir in London. Betsy, to you first. Is this another shift in the relationship between the president and NATO allies?
Well, it could mark a shift, but President Trump issuing a major ultimatum to these NATO countries, saying that the U.S. is ready to apply major sanctions on Russia only if NATO countries agree to do the same and to stop buying Russian oil. He said this in a letter to these countries issued earlier this morning. And the president also said in that letter that those countries should significantly ramp up those tariffs on China to 50 to 100%, marking a major show of force. But meeting President Trump's demands.
The reason why NATO will never raise tariffs on China is because it is an income tax. You are taxing the consumers. Why would they raise tariffs against China? That is literally the stupidest thing that they could do. Secondly, even if NATO stopped buying Russian oil, where are they going to get it from? Saudi Arabia? Iran? America? Like, what do you're giving them ultimatums, and are you offering any solutions? Because from what I'm hearing, all you're doing is threatening our allies, who are also committing atrocities, but nevertheless, allies. You're threatening our allies and not even offering realistic solutions.
Would mark a major shift in policy for these NATO countries. It's really unclear at this point if there is going to be collective interest in taking these steps. But I want to read to you from the president's letter. He says, quote, NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%, and the purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. Now, many of these countries still import Russian liquefied natural gas as well as fossil fuels. Turkey, which is a NATO member, is also a major importer of Russian oil. And this is also generally not how these countries approach the use of tariffs. So all of this setting up a major test for President Trump's influence. And it all comes as momentum toward ending Russia's war in Ukraine has significantly stalled in recent days. The president says that his patience with Russian President Vladimir Putin is running out and running out fast. And he was asked yesterday how he could put more pressure on Russia. Listen.
First of all, Trump has zero influence in Europe if the mere simple fact that Europe hasn't capitulated to any of his demands at any single point in time. Secondly, getting upset with Trump or getting upset with Putin and NATO is what he's been doing his first term and the entirety of this term. Like, throwing a temper tantrum is not accomplishing a single fucking thing. So, sure, let's listen to this, I guess.
What is clamping down on Vladimir Putin?
Well, it'll be hitting very hard with sanctions to banks and having...
Russia is the most sanctioned country on the planet through the United Nations and NATO. That has clearly not deterred Russia in the slightest.
To do with oil and tariffs also. But I've already done
tariffs.
I've done a lot.
Tariffs. How? Okay. If you're telling Europe to not import from Russia, then how would be tariffing Russia hurt if you're not importing from Russia to begin with? You dumb motherfucker. Also, tariffs don't hurt Russia. They never have, and they never will, because tariffs affect the consumer, not the country of origin.
The president's latest demands risk prolonging this conflict, and time is a valuable commodity for Putin. It gives Russia the ability to make more gains on the battlefield and shore up control of some of those occupied areas, Frederica.
All right, Betsy, thanks so much. And Nada, to you.
He's going to do
NATO
fucking
countries
nothing
have
about
launched what they're calling Operation Eastern Sentry in reaction to Russia's incursion into Poland's airspace. Where do things stand?
That's right. We expect this operation to be launched into the coming days. This is a collaboration between NATO member states, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Denmark, and other nations. The intention, according to the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, is to bolster defenses along NATO's eastern flank in the face of growing Russian threats and aggression. This is, of course, something that is...
So here's the thing. Tariffing a country does not impact that country at all. It just doesn't. Again, the only way to impact a country that you're trading with is through an export tax. And if you are not doing an export tax, that country ain't paying for it. The tariffs will only ever impact the person receiving the goods. And if we rely on Russia for, I don't know, natural gas, oil, steel, whatever, and we raise the tariffs on them, that just means the steel that we rely on them with, we are going to be paying more for. So, tariffs are not the answer. What do I think they should do? When do they unlock the export tax? All you have to do is apply it. That's literally, it's passed through Congress or... Well, I mean, granted, the tariffs are supposed to be passed through Congress too, so let's be very clear on that. But the export tax would be another thing that can be leveraged by Congress. And you don't do that as a weapon because then those partners, again, you don't use economic warfare against an allied nation. You also don't use it against a nation that you're adversarial with if you are trading with them regardless. Like, if you're trading with China, which we are, but we're going to condemn China, you still wouldn't charge them with an export tax or raise tariffs, because then that trade falls apart, and especially if you're reliant upon it. So you would not use trade as a weapon unless you can find an alternative to those things that you're trading with in the first place. In the case of China, it's manufacturing broadly. Like, all things manufacturing come from China at this point. So, unless you're willing to divest entirely from China and then go to every other country in the world that can manufacture, tariffing or export taxing China is kicking yourself in the teeth. Period. All China has to do is cut off all trade with the United States, and the United States economy would crumble within days or weeks. We're seeing that with the soybeans. We're seeing that with agriculture. We are literally seeing that in real time. That without China buying U.S. soybeans, our agricultural industry is collapsing. Because China said, all right, then we won't deal with it. And if China shuts us out entirely, we're fucked. That's it. Because even if we do try to bring back manufacturing in America, we cannot build those manufacturing sites fast enough and voluminous enough to make up for what China has built over the past 20 years and that we have exported over the past 20 years. That's the whole failure of that economic principle of globalization and reliance upon foreign manufacturing. Shipping jobs overseas only hurts the domestic bottom line if those relationships fall apart. So what would I do? It wouldn't be economic. It would be diplomatic. It would be sanctions in other ways, right? causing groups to divest from Russia. Not raising tariffs or exports, but like, okay, like the oil and gas thing is valid. But if you're not going to get oil and gas from Russia, then you have to have it from somewhere else. And if it isn't the United States, then it has to be from someplace else. So we would have to work on that diplomatic discussion of where are we going to get these natural resources from, if not from Russia. I mean, again, clean energy initiatives would prevent the reliance on foreign oil and gas anyway, but hey, that's crazy talk, right? The other thing would be to encourage more military support with Ukraine, an actual commitment to bolster Ukrainian defenses as a show of force and solidarity with Ukraine. Be like, all right, Russia, you have made your point. Stop, or this escalates. In return, we will make sure Ukraine denazifies itself. If Ukraine does denazification, will you go away? And if Russia says no, it's like, all right, then we're going to fight about it. And then we're going to make Ukraine denazify anyway, because you should always denazify whenever you can, right? So realistically, economic solutions against Russia would be isolating Russia from the global market, but you do that through negotiations and trade agreements and changing trade partners. Economic warfare is not tariffs and excise taxes. It's cutting off supply chains, cutting off access to resources, cutting off trade routes. That's how you fight an economic conflict, just to be clear. Stupid thing. Shift. Okay. I think that's all we can really get from that. We got 30 minutes, 40 minutes left. I'm already like angry, but I really don't want to see the slaughter of Palestinians. Let's see what CNN says.
Are you researching dental implants?
Because we know CNN isn't going to show the deaths of civilians. That would be counter to promoting this war.
For the third day in a row, Israel has targeted high...
What was the timestamp? I think there was one at 1 hour and 37 and 39. And I think 1:57.
Buildings in Gaza City with airstrikes. This residential town damage right there. But
oh, wow. CNN actually showed Israel committing a war crime.
Destroyed in today's attack. The Israeli military warned residents to leave the area before the strike. Another residential building was demolished when it was struck.
Again, residential buildings being struck by military weapons is a war crime. Definitively. It is never legal. Never. It is never legal to attack residential buildings during any act of war, any process of war, any military act that deliberately targets residential anything is always definitively a war crime.
The IDF says that building was being used by Hamas to observe.
Everything's Hamas. Hey, Israel, I'm Hamas. Columbus, Ohio is Hamas. The United States of America is Hamas. Like, everything is Hamas. You know, it's like ICE saying, oh, they're all illegals. They're all terrorists. It's like this administration, this terrorist regime saying, oh, they're all terrorists. They're all drug lords. They're all this, that, and the other. Like, you can't just blow something up and murder people and say, oh, it was Hamas. You just fucking can't do that. Charlie Kirk is apparently Hamas. You know what? Charlie Kirk is Hamas. I guess they got him, folks. Tyler Robinson is Hamas. They're going to get him too. The boat was Hamas, right? Like, fucking Christ. And CNN just reports it. Like, oh, nope, Israel claimed it was Hamas, even though they're claiming everything is Hamas and this is a war crime. Fuck CNN.
Group movements. Gaza hospital officials say more than 70 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes across Gaza this weekend alone. And happening right now, CNN is learning that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will discuss his potential plans to annex parts of the West Bank when he meets with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. That's according to Israeli sources. Earlier today, Rubio made a stop at the Western Wall in Jerusalem's Old City with Netanyahu and U.S. ambassador.
Yeah, what's up with this? Can somebody explain to me this whole Western Wall thing in Jerusalem? Every single president since World War II has gone to Jerusalem's Western Wall with a yarmulke, even though they're Catholic or Protestant, and put their hand on it or their head on it. What is this Western Wall? Yeah, no, Tyler is on suicide watch. I'm well aware of that. They might Epstein him, they might Hamas him. We'll find out, I guess. I get they need to be professional, but the news feels so soulless. No, they're not professional. They are simply not reporting the news. They're reporting facts as if they came from a vacuum. That's not reporting. That's like me reading off this receipt. Lennox Straight Aviation 4-strand 20 gauge 100 foot. That's what they're doing. Israel attacked this building. They claimed it was Hamas. Moving on, Netanyahu wants to annex the West Bank and all of Palestinian land, finishing the final solution of the Palestinian people. Like, they are literally just regurgitating what's in front of them. They aren't reporting, because reporting is more than just facts. It's about the legality. It's about the event. It's about the effect. It's about the impact. Reporting in journalism is not just reporting information. You can read that out of a textbook. Journalism and reporting is about conveying the truth with as little bias as possible. They're stenographers for the powerful. That is not supposed to be what the media does. Exactly. That is exactly the context. That's probably the word I was looking for.
Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. The visit comes just days after Israel targeted Hamas leaders with a deadly strike inside Qatar. CNN senior White House reporter Betsy Klein.
They are literally reporting the attack in Qatar, where the Hamas leadership that they are negotiating with was attacked in a foreign country against the leadership that they are negotiating with, as if, oh, it was just another Tuesday. These things happen. My fucking God, the propaganda is insane.
Is with us now. Betsy, when can we expect a formal meeting between Rubio and Netanyahu and a readout from that?
That's right. Today's appearance at the very holy site of the Western Wall in the Old City of Jerusalem was really more of a photo opportunity, but all eyes on Monday, this very high-stakes meeting between Secretary
Is Marco Rubio even Jewish? Why is he wearing a fucking yarmulke?
Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, according to 3 Israeli sources, Netanyahu is expected to press Rubio for specifics on where the Trump administration draws the line on Israeli annexation.
Yeah, according to Israel, everything that Israel was promised in the Bible is Hamas, which means it's allowed to be attacked indiscriminately.
Of the West Bank. This is something that Netanyahu has been considering and weighing the size and scope of a potential annexation. So Rubio...
You cannot annex something that you are illegally occupying and especially committing genocide against. Like, the fact that there is not international outrage at the fact that Israel is trying to annex the lands that they are genociding the people out from, the fact that that's not causing international outrage is absolutely fucking insane. Sure, it's finally happening. The discussions, the United Nations has said some things, but there's no action.
here representing the U.S. view on this matter and really walking a very challenging diplomatic tightrope. The United Arab Emirates, which has become a key U.S. ally under the Trump administration, has warned that annexation would result in a jeopardization of the Abraham Accords, and that, of course, is the president's signature 2020 foreign policy achievement. So much at stake here, and all of this comes as there has been some significant strain in the relationship between the U.S. and Israel following that decision earlier this week by Israel to target Hamas leaders in a strike inside Doha, Qatar. Privately, we have heard from Trump advisors that they are frustrated and angry about this attack and concerned that they weren't able to warn Qatari officials ahead of time or weigh in on this attack. But the president saying publicly he is, quote, not thrilled about this, while Rubio, meanwhile, is saying that the U.S. and Israel relationship remains strong. Listen.
He didn't like the way it went down. But that said, it's not going to shake. Our relationship with Israel is going to remain strong.
Yeah, you know what I think is actually happening here? I think this has to be what's happening. I think Israeli Zionists infiltrated the U.S. government 20 or 30 years ago. I think that's what happened. And probably 50 or 60 years ago, if we're being honest. Maybe even since post-World War II. Zionists infiltrated our federal government. And then that slowly expanded into what we have today, to where now the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, has so much influence over our national politics, and to a degree state and local politics, depending on the scale, that Zionism has been is in the process of a coup, of an official takeover of our institutions. Because if you look at the corruption of Trump and his cabinet and the activities that they are committing from just the lens of where it's happening, it is corruption. It is par for the course for many of these individuals to act the way that they do. RFK Jr., Pete Hegseth, Trump himself, Kash Patel, right? You have a bunch of incompetent people acting incompetently and selfishly. But when you look at how America is alienating itself from NATO, alienating itself globally, and bending over backwards for Israel, and then Trump himself parroting, turning Palestine into a resort, while maybe being somewhat angry against Netanyahu, but then Marco Rubio with the yarmulke when he's not even Jewish, saying, oh no, our relationship is strong as can be. The only way that makes sense, is that our government has been infiltrated by a foreign power, which is the organization known as Zionism. That foreign power headquarters itself in Israel. But Zionism, Zionists, those are the organization. They are a foreign power that are headquartered in Israel, and they are trying to shift their influence in America and abroad to force this final solution to occur in the Middle East. And what kills me is it seems as though the only goal that Zionists have is a little bit of ethnic cleansing, right? A little bit of ethnic cleansing in the Middle East, get rid of the Palestinians, carve out parts of other Middle Eastern territories to achieve the promised land from the Bible. And then what? Like, what's the end goal? That's the part that fucking I can't understand. You're committing genocide. You're doing all this ethnic cleansing. You're decimating the entire global relationships. All of it. You're just disrupting the entire global supply chain and diplomatic relations outright. And for what? Imaginary lines on a map? Like, what's the end goal? Global domination, everybody will be Zionist? Because they're not even arguing about the Jewish faith anymore. They're just arguing about murdering Palestinians and reclaiming the Holy Land. I don't even think they're pretending that it's about Jewish safety and creating a Jewish homeland. I don't even think they're lying about that anymore. I think they're straight up just talking about the Zionist movement and the biblical ordained guaranteed landmass that's this weird little shape. I had some shitlib tell me that the Democrats had to vote in favor of Rubio becoming the Secretary of State, otherwise we could get someone worse. Who and how could anyone be worse? And again, if you vote for them, then you're complicit. You should have just never voted for any of his cabinet picks and forced him to have an empty cabinet. Okay, dismissed, done. Fun fact, Rubio means blonde in Spanish. Marquito is not, in fact, a blonde. This is why shitlibs annoy me so much. The resort video in AI had me in mild shock. Yeah, no, it was absolutely crazy. So yeah, the only way that any of what's happening in the world, and especially in America, makes sense is that Zionists have infiltrated Western governments and are now implementing their final stage to implement their final solution for the Zionist government, which I don't even understand. I truly do not understand their end goal. But that's the only thing that makes sense, is it's a conspiracy.
You know, things happen or come up in those relationships that perhaps you're not 100% aligned with or what have you, but it's not going to change the nature of our relationship with the Israelis.
Now, Rubio.
Fuck Rubio.
The reason we exist is because you cannot stay ahead of all threats. So what we do is we block.
As Democrats deal with political violence here at home, the world is right now testing Donald Trump. The first international incident, Israel has infuriated a region by striking Hamas targets inside of Qatar, the site of peace talks. Now, the president is distancing himself.
Again, how is that not an immediate global activation call? Israel attacked a negotiating body in a neutral place during a negotiation period. Like that, I don't care what your politics, I don't care what your relationship is with Qatar or Israel or Hamas. That should have set alarm bells off for every country in the world and say, you cannot do that. Because the message overall is if Israel can bomb Hamas in Qatar, I don't know what the actual pronunciation is, then what's stopping Russia from bombing negotiators in India, between India and Pakistan, or China bombing negotiators in Taiwan? Like, what's stopping any country from murdering negotiators in any other country if Israel can get away with it? Like, I'm asking. What's the other
and the United States from that strike? Incident? And the White House is said to be frustrated by Israel's actions. Second, Russia flying drones into Poland, forcing NATO jets to scramble and to shoot them down.
Now, we've already covered both of those things.
A United Nations Commission of Inquiry has released a landmark report stating Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. It found Israel committed 4 of 5 acts of genocide under the 1948 Convention. The report says since October 2023, Israeli forces have bombed civilians in homes, shelters and safe zones. More than half of those killed were women, children and elderly people. Palestinians have suffered torture, sexual violence, forced displacement and cultural destruction. Israel imposed a siege on Gaza, cutting off food, water, power and medical aid, starving Palestinians and ignoring orders of the International Court of Justice. Israel deliberately inflicted conditions to destroy Palestinians in Gaza, including reproductive violence, when an IVF clinic was attacked to prevent births. These are the same 4 crimes that the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to take all measures to prevent back in January 2024. Since that ruling, nearly...
This is the shitty thing. October 7th, 2023, the brouhaha came up and around. 3 months later, the ICJ told Israel to stop this shit, and nothing was done. Israel did not change anything. They've only accelerated and increase the violence and abuse and destruction Ever since. And this is 21 months later. We're at the 2-year mark, damn near, of this entire bullshit. I'm sorry.
20,000 Palestinians have been killed. Navi Pillay.
None of these are good pictures. The UN straight up told Israel to stop this shit multiple times since October 7th, and never once has Israel ever stopped, and never once has any of the United Nations countries ever done anything to stop them. So, what's this report going to do differently than the ICJ did 2 years ago? I just, again, if ever you ever had to ask your question this, what would I have done in Nazi Germany? And what would I have done in Nazi Germany if Nazi Germany happened with social media and the internet? Would it have been prevented? Could people have stopped it then? And quite frankly, the answer is right in front of us. It's what America is doing. It's what happened in South African apartheid. It's what happened in Brazil, although thank God they finally got Bolsonaro. It's what's happening in Argentina. And it's what Israel is doing right fucking now. If ever you were wondering, would the Nazis have gotten away with it, and would people have supported the Nazis doing it if they were being scrutinized on social media in 4K? And if you asked yourself that question and the answer was no, apparently you were wrong. Because the Nazis are getting away with it, they are bragging about it, and they are undermining every single institution that exists to carry out their final solution. More than 2 million Israelis live in poverty. Nationalism gives us false confidence and forgets the class struggle. What Israel has done so far has only benefited the oligarchy. Palestinians and Israelis must unite to eliminate that oligarchy that makes them fight. Either that meant to be international is the way, or intersectional. But if internazione is a word, then I'm not familiar with that word. But you're right. You are right that this is a class struggle at the end of the day. And that needs to be addressed as much as everything else that's being done. I mean, there's clearly no justification to what Israel is doing. There is no legal justification. There's no ethical justification, moral justification. I mean, there isn't even a historical justification. You can say all day long that these lands were promised to me 3,000 years ago, but that was 3,000 fucking years ago. Okay? 3,000 years ago, all of the United States of America belonged to whichever indigenous tribe was here. 3,000 years ago, Mexico was still Mexico. Okay? And so was California and most of the Western United States. 3,000 years ago, the Middle East was Sumeria, and most of Africa was Egypt. So, like, I don't even understand what we're talking about here. But the fact that there is so little willingness from the international community, the United Nations, and NATO to hold Israel accountable tells me that it has to be Zionism having infiltrated the government, the governments, and the institutions, and that they are the ones that are preventing any sort of change or action being taken. Oh. I did not know that. So, Internazionale. Or maybe it's still pronounced Internationale, but as an international socialist organization. So thank you for that. I was not aware of that. But that's how they get poor people to fight the wars of the oligarchs. They tell the Israelis that they are God's chosen people, that they are special, and the proletariat believes the BS and fight their wars. Well, it's just like I was saying earlier with how does the right wing create the right wing? And it's through cult development dynamics. And it's the same shit that Israel is doing. It's the same shit Zionists are doing. It's the same shit all of these countries and groups do that advocate for some sort of ultranationalism or ethno-state. Anything that has to do with supremacy is always cult-like mentality, and it's always the same process. Blame an other, vilify the other, blame the other for all of your failures, and when people try and call you out on that shit, circle down and huddle together with the other people who haven't hurt your little feelings, and then build your numbers from there until you can drown out or violently oppress and overthrow and react to the people that are telling you to stop acting like sociopaths. So it's all cult-like mentalities. The problem is it's very difficult to develop a cult with social and liberal ideology, because most people who believe in liberal and social ideologies are very well educated. It requires emotional intelligence and intellectual intelligence to believe the fact that people deserve better because they are people that deserve better. Okay? And trying to create a cult-like mentality doesn't work, because it creates other offshoots that then prescribe, well, we're going to save the world our way then. It doesn't coalesce into, well, we all need to save the world together. It coalesces to, well, then fuck you. You do your thing and we'll do ours. Because I'm right, because I'm intellectually or emotionally intellectually superior. So creating a left-wing cult is going to be extremely, extremely difficult. Because it's been attempted in history, I'm sure. Christianity was supposed to be very liberal, and, well, look what happened to that. That's how rich people got poor white Southerners to fight a war for slavery when they didn't even own slaves. No, you're absolutely fucking right. And it's also why we had 2 lynchings in Mississippi the past couple of weeks. It's fucking insane.
Is the chair of the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory. She says the goal of the Israeli government is abundantly clear.
The Commission concludes that statements made by Israeli authorities are direct evidence of genocidal intent. The Commission also concludes that the pattern of conduct is circumstantial evidence for genocidal intent, and that genocidal intent was the only reasonable inference that could be drawn from a totality of the evidence.
Which I'm fairly fucking certain we were saying since October fucking 8th. Pretty goddamn sure we were saying that immediately after Israel's response leveled. What was it? What was it at first? It obviously wasn't Gaza City. I don't remember now the city that they leveled, but they leveled it over fucking night. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not a proportionate response to a terrorist attack. That is clearly the implementation of the final solution. So yeah, no. The fact that it took nearly 2 years for the United Nations to say, well, due to the totality of the evidence and the circumstantial evidence and the actions being taken, the only reasonable conclusion that can be drawn is genocidal intent. I mean, they could have literally figured this shit out a year ago. Like, even a year ago, September 2024, which was, I think that was Rafah. I think Rafah fell in September of last year. They could have easily given this report back then and stopped all of this nonsense from occurring then. But no. The United Nations is just as complicit as NATO, which is just as complicit as the individual member states in allowing this shit to happen. So, by coming up with the commission now saying, oh yeah, it was genocidal intent all along, well, thanks, but what are you actually going to fucking do about it? And why are you patting yourselves on the back when you could have and should have been acting much, much sooner?
Therefore, the Commission concludes that the Israeli authorities and Israeli security forces have the genocidal intent to destroy in whole or in part, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Okay. UN Commission finds Israel is committing 4 out of 5 acts of genocide in Gaza. What's the 5th act? What act of genocide is Israel not committing? I'm very curious to know what that is.
The Commission finds that the Israeli political and military leaders are agents of the State of Israel. Therefore, their acts are attributable to the State of Israel. The Commission therefore concludes that the State of Israel bears responsibility for the failure to prevent genocide, for the commission of genocide, and for the failure to punish genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Great. So, what are you gonna fucking do about it? The Commission finds that they are guilty, that the State of Israel is guilty, that the government is responsible, that they are guilty and responsible. What are you fucking doing about it?
View from Israel. Alon Pinkas is a former Israeli diplomat and he joins us from Tel Aviv. Alon, this report is intended to be detailed, it's intended to be damning. The convention that defines genocide as a crime was directly inspired by the genocide of 6 million Jews by Nazi Germany. What is Israel's perception of international justice and the UN's role in it?
Well, official Israel, predictably calls it fake and calls it a bogus report with a built-in anti-Israeli bias, and exactly what you would have expected from an official Israeli response. Look, you have to understand here something. Israelis at large are absolutely in denial over what's going on in Gaza, and they have been.
So were the fucking Germans, motherfucker. So were South Africans during apartheid. Like, so were Americans during Manifest fucking Destiny. Americans are still in denial that we committed genocide against indigenous Americans, that we committed genocide against slaves, and that we are in the process of committing genocide against Hispanics in America, who are even natural-born citizens. Like, we are in the process of committing genocide. Again, what... Don't take my word for it. What are the 5 forms of genocide? Don't take my word for it, folks. From the United Nations itself. Definition. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, Article 2. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. Killing members of the group. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now, I said, and I stand by the fact that I said, America committed genocide against indigenous Americans and slaves, and then later on against Black Americans broadly, and presently against Hispanic Americans, Hispanic peoples in the United States of America. By the definition of Article 2 of the Geneva Conventions, defining what the crimes of genocide are, killing members of the group. One could say that a few deaths by ICE, a few killings by ICE doesn't equate to genocide, but it's the acceleration thereof and the fact that they are being cause serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group through the violations of ethical imprisonment, the fact that they are in inhumane conditions and being terrorized in broad daylight throughout our fucking country, causing mental harm. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Again, terrorizing Latino communities, which has already resulted in dramatic decline in jobs and career fields where Latinos tend to be present. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Maybe that one hasn't necessarily taken part yet against Latinos, but there is evidence that the United States of America did and has and may even continue to perform hysterectomies against indigenous women, black women, and Latino women without their fucking knowledge. They have done it in the past, and they have done it in the not-so-recent past, and there is every reason to believe that they continue to do so. They've also made it extremely more difficult to receive medical care, especially for child care, throughout the country. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Again, the human trafficking that has occurred from the border of separating children from their parents who fled across our border illegally have been consistently found in the thousands to wind up in the foster system. So, when I say definitively that we are committing acts of genocide against Latinos in America, it's by their definition. Elements of the crime. A mental element. The intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, and... Oh, it doesn't actually define the mental element. The intent is the most difficult element to determine. To constitute genocide, there must be a proven intent on the part of perpetrators to physically destroy the group. Cultural destruction does not suffice, nor does an intention to simply disperse a group. It is this special intent, or dolus specialis, that makes the crime of genocide so unique. The intent, again, is very present in both the rhetoric of the administration, the rhetoric of Texas leadership, and other southern state leadership. It is very prominent in both the rhetoric and the policy positions of our countrymen in power that these are deliberate. They did forced sterilizations in Puerto Rico. I was driving through a very Central American neighborhood and I was thinking these people must be fucking terrified, which I'm sure that they are. And we didn't even get to cover everything today. We did not get to go cover the Nepal activism thing. We didn't get to cover Trump getting mocked by the UK. Ah, fuck, we didn't get to cover the Supreme Court. Hold on. We got enough time to do that.
Is what sets us apart. We make sure that they're really having fun in the yard. It's really all about...
I just want to bring you some breaking news coming to us from Brazil now. Former President Jair Bolsonaro has been sentenced to more than 27 years in prison. The Supreme Court there has convicted him of plotting a coup to remain in power after losing the election in 2022. Let's go straight to our Latin American editor, Lucia Newman, who's live for us in Brasilia. How significant is this sentence?
It's extremely significant and also a surprise. It wasn't expected to be delivered until tomorrow. The last of the 5 court justices gave his guilty verdict about 20 minutes ago, and then he and the remaining 4 had to calculate what the sentence would be. One of the judges had asked for more than 40 years in prison. One only of the 5 had asked for the former president to be acquitted, but in the end, they agreed on 27 years and 3 months of imprisonment. Now, we have to keep very much in mind that this may...
right? Like, none of them suggested the death penalty. one of them suggested acquittal. Like, what the fuck? I mean, thank God that they found him guilty. Jesus.
May not happen immediately. That hasn't yet been discussed. The lawyers, or rather Bolsonaro's lawyers and that of the other 7 co-defendants still have some wiggle room here, so it could take a while. And apart from that, the supporters of Bolsonaro in Congress are already submitting an amnesty law, hopefully to get Bolsonaro off the hook so he won't have to go.
Can we just not be fascist sociopaths for 5 minutes? Can we just, like, does every single democracy in the world have to be facing a crisis right now? Like, our country is facing a democratic crisis. I would say the crisis is already past. Like, we are no longer a democracy at this point. Like, I don't think we can honestly, objectively say that the United States of America is an actual democracy with the way things currently are. But, like, South Korea had to deal with this. Nepal is currently dealing with this. Now we have Brazil that is dealing with it, but then has the legislative branch trying to undermine it. Like, there is still so much influence of fascism in this democracy that they are trying to exonerate their dictator who lost, who was found guilty of the crime. So what? During the next election cycle, he can have a chance of getting elected again? Like, this is fucking insane. And then we already have fascists in Argentina and Israel, and I'm sure there are several other countries that I can't think of right off the top of my head. Right. What wiggle room? The Supreme Court made the decision. You know, what a way to end my stream. Going off the rails and losing my ever-fucking loving mind, right? Welcome to the stream, folks. Your 48th president, Samuel Ronan. It has been a stream. Holy shit, has it been a stream. I think we mildly had a glimpse of happiness at the very beginning, and then like a little bit of hope with Francesca Albanese, and that was it. Everything else was an absolute fucking shit show. Have I seen Gen V? Yes, actually, I have seen Gen V. That's the one where the black girl ends up having essentially vampire powers. And it's an offshoot off of The Boys. Yeah, no, I saw that, but I don't have Amazon, whatever the streaming service is called. Prime, Amazon Prime. But, piracy. My man. Hey, you know what? Piracy is a crime, and you shouldn't do piracy because piracy is wrong. And if you're gonna do piracy, don't do that because it's wrong. So don't go to the website where you can do the piracy. Which website should we not go to, True Steel, in order to illegally pirate Gen V? Because that would be wrong if we went to that website. And we don't want to do that. While we're waiting for him to tell us what site not to go to, thank you all for joining us again. Thank you all for being a part of the stream, being a part of the movement here. As always, like, share, and subscribe to the stream. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, your enemies that we need to fight back. And this crazy motherfucker behind 2 thumbs is willing to do so. Tomorrow, excuse me. Shit. All right, movies-to-watch.tv. Do not go there. That's the final PSA. Tomorrow is our final day of streaming for the week. It is Recap Thursdays, where we catch up on all the news that we either didn't get to do today or yesterday, or whatever crazy, batshit insane thing happened between then and now. So, join us tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern until 10 p.m. Eastern, where we get to recap the internet. Your president, Samuel Ronan, out.